Morning, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Coast to Coast College Football Pregame Show. We are down to the Final Four, and we will have a new champion, but we'll get to that in a second. Happy Saturday. Welcome back. Top left corner. I think probably a little disappointed this morning. My Buckeye brother from another mother, Mr. Cottrell Simpson. How are you, sir?
You know, if you'd asked me that question 2 days ago, I think I would have had a different answer for you. But after having some time to really sit back and reflect, I feel a little bit. I feel a little bit better. You know, it could be a lot worse. I'll say that.
I understand that. I do. Top right quarter. Think a guy who's probably very excited right now. Thinks he has a great chance to hang the banner finally. Mr. Oregon Duck, Mr. Alex Elmore, Mr. Black. How are you, sir?
You know, it feels good. I don't got to deal with Cottrell talking about Ohio State going forward anymore. Michigan's eliminated. And we have, if people do not know this, we have an insane streak on the line. This is our third season on air. The first season, Bill's team in Michigan won a national championship. Our second year, Cottrell's team in Ohio State won a national championship. And year 3, my team, Oregon Ducks, are still alive for a chance to win the college football playoff. And also the fact that all 4 contestants have never won a national champion. We're going to have the first time national champion this year. That's exciting. Great for college football. And it's a beautiful Saturday, boys. So I'm excited to get into it.
All those things are true, and we are going to get into all of them. We are going to have a new national champion, which is probably good for the game. Me and Cottrell would probably disagree, selfishly. But, a couple upsets, a lot of things going on kind of behind the scenes in college football right now. We're going to get into all that as well. We'll get into the portal. We'll do recaps, and then we got previews for 4 huge games next week. So 2 games, sorry. So, Alex, let's not waste any time, sir. Let's get into all the good stuff.
Shotgun, DC right, flip 90, dig, on the center, ready?
All right, welcome to another week of Break the Huddle. We go over all the top college football news. Last couple weeks we started with recapping the games. This week I think we're starting to realize, the issues around the college football playoff scheduling. Obviously, the transfer portal opens. A lot of stuff has happened this week. So we're going to start with a quick video clip from Dan Lanning. He had a press conference the other day, having a chance to discuss his opinion on the college football playoffs, the dates. After the quick minute clip, we're going to have a little discussion about it. Put what you think in the comments, and let's keep this ball
There's
rolling.
clearly a better way, and I think it really starts with the season moving up and the playoffs not having. How many days, Coach, is it for you between us and your last game?
We played December 6th, and I'm 100% with him about moving the.
Yeah, ultimately, in my mind, the vision for this should be, every playoff game should be played every single weekend until you finish the season. Ideally, the season, even if it means we start week 0 or you eliminate a bye, the season ends January 1st. This should be the last game. It should be the championship game, and then the portal opens. Then coaches that have to move on to their next opportunities get the opportunity to move to their next opportunities. Certainly, there's some conversation about when high school signing day should be. I think.
So we will get into the whole high school signing day stuff. I think he brings up some very valid points. This week with Indiana winning, where they were the first team with a first-round bye to actually win the quarterfinal game after that bye. So they're 1-7 overall. Huge layoff for teams. Obviously, transfer portal opens up. Oregon has some issues with coaching, needing to go to their new schools to work on their transfer portals and meet with players, really interrupting game prep. Cottrell, Bill, what's your guys' opinion on this? Does he have valid points as far as how the date should look? How do we fix this problem?
So I think he has like a great point in the sense of like the timeline of the schedule. I mean, I think that's pretty much spot on. Like you really can't have a better schedule ultimately than that. I do think the one thing that I would kind of push back against though would be potentially eliminating buys. I think you also have to remember that these are still kids, like they aren't professional athletes. And if you're still putting them on a, 16, 17, 18 game schedule, essentially, if it, they go conference championship, run the playoffs and things like that, I do think it is important to still have the 2 buys in there because, you don't want the kids to break down ultimately there. But I love what he said, though, as far as ending the season on January 1st. Like, I think that would be a great time to do that. And honestly, I think keeping National Signing Day, you keep it the same. I think you could have it. I mean, it happens during the week anyway, so you could have it still be on a Tuesday or the Wednesday or whatever the case may be there, and it really not affect too much because I understand that coaches aren't going to necessarily be able to go to their new team until after that January 1st marker there, but we've seen at least right now, coaches are already doing double duty as far as getting kids to commit, getting kids, on campus or, trying to close deals and things like that. So, I mean, I don't think it would be too huge of a distraction if the only thing these new coaches had to worry about was, their high school signing classes when they go over to these new programs. Like, I honestly think that would take probably 75% of the workload off of these coaches that are going to the new schools. We saw what Brian Hartline was doing going back and forth to South Florida. We've seen what what's Tosh was doing at Oregon going back and forth to Cal. Same thing with Stein going back and forth to Kentucky. So I think it's a great idea. I would just caution about the whole bye week situation there because I do think the kids probably still need to go 2 bye weeks.
I am dead on with Cottrell on this. The elimination of the bye week is a big thing for me. I don't like that at all. You look at the NFL, the way they structure everything now. Again, these are kids. They do still, for some part of this, depending on when their schools go on breaks and everything else. They still have to do academic stuff as well. So getting rid of the second bye week would be a no for me. If you want to move the season up a week, I don't think anybody's going to complain if we start getting college football in week 3, of August. I think it's going to say. I think they would have to allow the kids to come back a little earlier, so they could still have a full camp. But I don't think anybody's going to complain about that. We've all discussed this before, and I think we're all kind of in agreement. I don't know why they just don't keep the games on Saturdays. I hate that there's 2 teams that get sandwiched the night before every time. Like this time, it was Ohio State, Miami. The first week there was a Friday game. I don't like that. And I think again, I've said it before. I think you're placating too much to the holidays. And I think that's part of it. Like, I don't think you need to have 10, 11 days between each one of these games. So to his other point where just keep banging them out on Saturday, I completely agree with that. And I think you get the season done faster that way. I don't think it's that much of a change. I mean, that's what the kids are used to doing anyway. So adding all this extra time and having all these teams sit for 3 or 4 weeks, I think we've all agreed from the get-go it's not ideal. So I would say if you're going to skip 1 week, I think that's one thing. Like if you want to have the conference championship games, which would then kind of be, I guess, end of November, if you move everything up a week, and then you have everybody sit for 1 week, but then just start going Saturday, you still get done at the same time. So I think they're going to have to look at it seriously because I think with the championship schedule for what, like the 19th now or something like that.
January 19th. Yep.
Yeah, like it's nuts. It's nuts, and you just have all this time, and then you're going to finish. I think you're going Thursdays and stuff again, and then you're playing. And then we've talked at nausea about putting the national championship game on a Monday night, which I cannot stand. So, I definitely think there's tweaking to be done there, and I think again, I think it's good when coaches kind of with more pull and a louder voice, like Dan Lanning, and I know Kirby's talked about it before, and a couple other big names. That tends to get people to start listening. So hopefully you see some kind of change. I don't like the schedule now. I hate waiting 10, 11 days between games. There's no need for it. This isn't the old days where kids are getting on buses. They're playing the game. They're getting on a plane. They're back on campus either that night or the early next morning. So, I think everything else can be worked around that. So I really pretty much across the board agree with Cottrell.
Yeah, he also went on later on in the interview to say that he feels like the NCAA caters a little bit too much to the NFL as far as like revolving our schedule around theirs. with NFL having games on Saturday, we've mentioned it a few times. Like Saturday should be sacred for college football. NFL has their Sundays. You kind of see a little bit of do you agree with him when he comes out about that, as far as the NFL goes?
I do actually, because like I look at it, for instance, if they were playing today, if you're not I think today's football games are what, Tampa Bay, Carolina, and then who's
Niners,
tonight?
Seattle. Niners, Seattle.
Okay, so if you're not a fan of one of those four teams, you're probably still watching college football. And regardless, again, like if it's a fan of both, where you just coincidentally have your college team and your NFL team playing, you're going to go back and forth. And then at that point, and then if you don't fall in one of those baskets, the college football people are going to watch college football regardless. And if you're really invested in the NFL for some reason, you're going to watch that regardless. So I agree with him. Like Saturday is college football. So like, I don't know why we get later in the season, all of a sudden they start catering to the NFL. If you put all four of those games on a Saturday, the people that want to watch them are going to watch them regardless. Like you're not going to lose some like huge chunk of viewership to the NFL unless your teams are probably playing. So I agree with him. I would start putting them on Saturdays, and it's not going to change anything with the bowl games, in attendance and anything like that. So I agree with him. I would start doing it.
I would too. And I think the one thing too is that, like, Gene put the comment that, he watches NFL over college. I think you're going to have your people that watch NFL over college.
Right.
Like, those are going to be your people regardless. Like, Gene is one of those examples where he watches NFL and he also watches college. But I do think, I know it's both football, but I do think a lot of people, have their preferences as, with college football or the NFL. You have a lot of people that just watch NFL, or you have a lot of people that, would prefer to watch college. So I do think the viewership is still going to be there. And I also think that you look at it, NFL is king as far as ratings go. Like, I 100% understand that. But you also have to think, like, Tampa Bay and Carolina as a game today, like, that's for who wins the NFC South, and it's important because they're ultimately going to be the last playoff team there. But in reality, if we're just talking about good football, like, I'd much rather see Oregon and Indiana today over the Panthers and Tampa Bay playing for that last playoff spot in Week 18. And I think the other part that you kind of have to think about too is the fact that I understand that these are two games in this situation where on the NFL side, where they're going to ultimately decide playoff positioning and, what team gets into the playoffs. But there's a lot of games on Sunday where they don't matter at all. So you could easily get put in a position where you're going up against games in the NFL that don't matter. Look at how many backups played on Christmas Day. Like, and I get it, the ratings for Christmas were still great for the NFL. But, like, look at how, watered down that product was, in my opinion. I think if you're going to go up against, I think you can go up against the NFL and your viewership is still going to be there if the games are what they have been. I think the college football playoff has done a great job of, with this expansion, at least, you're seeing that it should have always been more than just those four teams, because last year you had all four of the teams that had the bye went home. This year, three of those four teams went home. So it's clearly more than just the top four teams, ranked at the end of the year there. So I would give it a shot and see ultimately how it goes, because the way that it is right now is ultimately broken. And so I don't know. Maybe worst case scenario, you think about putting a couple games on Friday and a couple games on Saturday, but I don't think it would be, this crazy thing if they decided to, put, one or two games up against the NFL, or even just try to, mix them in with that NFL schedule and try and sneak one in before or sneak one in after.
Again, I don't disagree. I think if you put Tampa Bay, Carolina up against, that Alabama Indiana game, with the way SEC people watch football, again, I think you're losing the NFL people. That's fine, but you're also looking at, like, how many people can't watch the game on, couldn't watch the Ohio State and Miami game Friday night because they had something else going on. Like, you keep the schedule to Saturdays where people are used to watching it and make plans around watching it. I don't think the numbers dip that much. I really don't. So, and I think overall, I think college viewership and fans in general will be a lot happier not having to be like, oh, my team's going to play Wednesday this week. Oh, next week they're going to play Friday, and then the week after that, oh, now they're back to a Saturday. Oh, they won again. Oh, cool. Now they're going to play Monday night. Like it's annoying. Like uh, and we've talked about the national championship before. Put the national championship on Saturday night. Again, if you're not watching your NFL team or you're not a person like Gene, you're going to watch it. And anybody who's a college football fan who's a fan of not even either of those teams, they're going to watch it anyway. So I don't see the big drop or the big dip. I wish they would do it because keeping going again, trying to make plans like the middle of the week and like just revolving your schedule around stuff. It changes year by year by the day. It's annoying. It's frustrating.
And I think the other part of that too is that there's going to be a year where if you don't change and things kind of go status quo, there's going to be a year where, New Year's Eve or New Year's Day falls on a Saturday and a Sunday, and you're going to have to go directly against the NFL anyway. And so, that particular year, your ratings are just going to be down. You're going to say, you're okay with it, or you're going to give up on the tradition of having those games on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And you're going to be like, oh, well, the NFL's playing that day, so we're not going to throw games on. I think the NFL has done a great job of, putting themselves in a position that no matter what, people are going to watch. But I also think, the way that they've taken over Christmas from the NBA, the way that they've been able to put games on really anytime they want to. Like last week, I think we had a game on Thursday, we had games on Saturday, and we had games on Sunday. Who's to stop the NFL 1 year from saying, you know what, we're going to start having games on Wednesday. We're going to start having games on Friday. Like, I just don't think you can, ultimately put yourself in a position where you're just at the mercy of the NFL and their schedule. So I would give it a shot. And if this ultimately fixes the whole transfer portal window and fixes coaches leaving and coaches not being available and, players who could potentially play in these playoff games, a shot to not hit the portal until the season's over, then, so be it.
Like to your point, next year, I'm curious to see what they're going to do. Christmas and New Year's Day both fall on Friday next year. So they're not going to play games on Friday. So they're going to move the slate to Saturday anyway. So that's what I mean. Like they know, to your point, they know they can do it when they want to. I just don't know why they don't. So and I guarantee you, with it being the day after Saturday, their ratings will be just as high, if not higher, as they usually are. So
here's what I say: is there's enough pieces of the pie for everyone to get a slice.
correct.
Like I said, with growing up, it was always obviously recently as of recent years they've put NFL on Thursdays and all that stuff. But when I grew up, it was high school was Fridays, college football was Saturdays, NFL was Sunday and Mondays. Like that was the schedule I grew up with, and there were no issues. Now, I see in the comments a lot of people talking about greed and the NFL playing on Christmas Day, which I always thought of as an NBA holiday. Thanksgiving, NFL is king. So like there's just a lot of moving pieces. There's enough days in the week where everyone can get a nice piece of the pie. I just thought he brought up some great points about the schedule and how it can be adjusted to benefit the coaches, the players, and even the fans. So I think we will see a change, maybe even this next offseason as far as scheduling goes and all that. But I just really want to touch base. I'm glad that we got your guys' opinions on that. Let's take a quick look at what the national championship picture looks like right now. Obviously, we had the quarterfinal game this last week: Alabama, Indiana, Texas Tech, Oregon, Miami, Ohio State, and Georgia, Ole Miss. Where do you guys want to start?
I mean, we're not going into recaps right now, correct?
No, we can save those for later if you want to, or we can.
Okay, that's fine. I'll be general about this then. I think the Indiana Oregon rematch is super exciting, especially if you watch that game earlier on in the season at Oregon. That's to use Alex's favorite word, that will be another slobber knocker for sure. I don't think that is a game. I think a lot of people expected that side of the bracket to look that way. The only other difference would be, I think, if a lot of people took Texas Tech over Oregon, I think everybody expected Indiana to come out of the top. I will say this. I think the notion that I've already seen a lot online that, the winner of this national championship is definitely going to come out of the left side of the bracket, I think is very premature. I would say Indiana being the number one overall seed and Oregon, kind of going through it last year and having a very good team this year. are both very good teams. Don't get me wrong. I think Miami's already proven, and Ole Miss, that they can play. So I think this kind of narrative that whoever wins the Indiana Oregon game is definitely the national champion. I don't buy into that. They're going to settle it on the field. I think they'll definitely be the favorite. I think whoever comes out of the left side, but Miami and Ole Miss are playing good football right now, so that is going to be a very interesting game as well. Kind of a contradiction in style. So I'm definitely, I've had no horse in this race from the get go, but I'm looking forward to both of those games. I think they're both going to be really good football games.
I'll say this: the one thing as a whole that kind of surprised me was three of these 4 games were pretty decisive, and that's including the Ohio State and Miami game. Like, I know Ohio State second half, like, they started to figure it out, but if you watch that game, it was a lot of Miami having full control of that game. Obviously, the Indiana and Bama game, that was the case from the jump. Indiana never had any inkling of a doubt, and then even in the Oregon and Texas Tech game, while Oregon was struggling to put up points early, in that game, their defense made it impossible for Texas Tech to have sustained success there. So I think that was kind of surprising with all of the matchups that we had. Like, I thought those games would look a little bit different there. But then as far as that Georgia and Ole Miss game, I mean, that game was phenomenal to see, because it really was a carbon copy essentially of that first matchup that you had between Georgia and Ole Miss. Like, as far as both offenses moving the ball up and down the field and it being a track meet kind of game. But ultimately at the end there, you had Ole Miss get it done. But I know we're going to talk about it more during previews as well, but I just want to give a little bit of love to that Ole Miss kicker. He was money all night. He was as effective and probably the most important player in that entire game. When you have a college football kicker that can hit from 50 plus consistently for you, you have one of the most rarest commodities in all of the sport. So I definitely wanted to give him some love there. And on the flip side of that as well, what a journey for Trinidad Chambliss. You go from last year being at Division II, your quarterback in your team at Ferris State, you win a national championship, and you go to Ole Miss, and the entire report is, he's thinking about, oh, maybe I can be a backup, maybe I can be a gadget guy for them. And you go out and you're the starting quarterback for them. You get some Heisman votes, and now you're on a team that's in the semifinals competing for a Division I national championship. I think that is a journey that should definitely inspire a lot of the kids who are at these lower levels. Because it's not like he's like the biggest kid. He was just under recruited because there weren't eyes on him and things like that. He literally grinded his way up, and now he's quarterbacking one of the best teams in the country. So 2 things I wanted to highlight with that Ole Miss team there. But I'm excited for these semifinals, even though they don't involve my team.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Ole Miss kicker. Shout out to him. Oregon has a fantastic kicker in Atticus Sappington, where he's like automatic, but he doesn't have that range.
The range.
Yeah, if it's within 48, or within 50, he ain't missing. Anything longer than 50 is a little up in the air. So having a kicker that can hit from that far is honestly clutch.
Lucas Carnero is his name.
Thank you.
He's got a badass name. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a badass name. But let's talk about, because I like something you said, is that the last couple of years, the quarterfinal games have really not been close. Over 50% of the game, or not over 50, exactly 50% of the games have been decided by 3 possessions or more. Going back from Penn State, Boise State last year, Ohio State's thumping of Oregon last year. And this year, we have Oregon beating Texas Tech 23-0 and Indiana absolutely boat racing Alabama. And this kind of ties into what Dan Lanning was saying as far as the schedule goes. How much weight can we put behind the fact that having a first round bye is a bad thing?
So here's my thing.
Records do not lie.
So here's my thing. I was honestly so far behind it. I was like, yeah, man, those buys are detrimental. Like, the proof is in the pudding. But then I go out and I see Indiana take care of business against a Bama team who had just beaten Oklahoma the previous week. And I know we had talked about Bama's offense struggling and things like that, but we saw them have success against Oklahoma. I think for me, I would feel slightly different if I had saw that Alabama and Oklahoma game where it was just this, ugly, mutter kind of game. It ultimately ended like, 13-10, something like that. Bama's offense wasn't rolling. But to me, it felt like Bama figured something out towards the end of that game there. And that's, regardless of how you feel about the SEC or, them being overrated, things like that, Oklahoma, I know for sure, had a good defense. Like the numbers were there, their scheme was there. So for Bama to have success offensively, to me, that showed that, all right, Bama has started to figure something out. But the way that Indiana were pretty much on them from the jump, there was no slow period there with that. So I think, yes, of course, the rust plays a part in these games, but I think Indiana ultimately showed you that if you're the better football team, you're going to find a way to come out on top. And I also think you look at these matchups here as well, like Texas Tech versus Oregon. Oregon was the favorite in that game. And again, I don't think we expected the overall game to look like that, but a lot of people thought Oregon was just the better football team. You look at Georgia versus Ole Miss. You saw the first time that they played, they blew, they gave up 17 points in the fourth quarter to lose that game in the regular season. People could argue that Ole Miss was the better football team, to begin with. So and then Ohio State, Miami, I do think we came out a little flat. But to not go too far into that game, I think there's a lot of factors that went into that. And, ultimately for me, styles make fights, and Miami's defensive line put it to Ohio State. So whether that game was played, right after the Big Ten championship or, obviously after the bye there as well, I don't know if that necessarily played a factor into it. Like, I don't think it was because Ohio State was rusty. I just think Miami took it to Ohio State defensively there. So I think that ultimately, to sum up everything I'm kind of saying here, I think the bye week definitely plays a part. But if you're the better football team, you're still going to find a way to win. Like, I think even if Oregon had a bye this week and they played Texas Tech coming off a bye, I think they would have won the football game just because, those two were the better football teams over there.
I think listen, I think there's some truth to what you just said. I'm not putting all my stock in Alabama, who was already a 3-loss team coming in, and kind of struggled down the stretch. Oklahoma kind of did too. There's why a lot of people looked at that game and they were kind of like, this is kind of the throwaway game anyway, and everybody thought Indiana was going to romp through that quarter because they were just better than everybody in it. Oregon, I think, is the classic case from last year where they dominated everybody, sat for a month, came out and got, boat raced by eventual Ohio State, national champions Ohio State. I think the schedule eliminates a lot of this, though, if we change it. These kids get set in routines. I mean, it's you hear it in the NFL as well. They're used to doing a certain thing every week on a certain day to get ready for a game, and now all of a sudden it's, well, we're not doing anything this week because the coaches are all away recruiting. Some of the other coaches are game planning. You guys are gonna have light practices. You're gonna lift. Then you're gonna go home for the holiday, and then you're gonna come back, and then 10 days from now we're gonna play a football game. I definitely think it messes with them. Again, I think Ole Miss, Georgia. Again, I don't think that has anything to do with the break. I think that's just two really good football teams. I would say the same thing for Ohio State. Miami, like Cottrell said. I just think that was a case of a game plan that really worked, and I think just kind of something kind of not working. I don't think that's necessarily a rust thing. Texas Tech, I think, looked awful on offense. I don't think that's necessarily a layoff thing. I think Oregon's defense was just that good, and I think they came out with a really good game plan. And on top of everything else, I think Texas Tech just played awful offensively. I think the defense played incredible, but I think there's something to it. And again, I don't think anybody should be sitting for damn near a month. I think that's nuts. I mean, again, you look at the NFL. Even if you have a bye, you're calling for a bye to get an extra week off. I don't think any NFL team would sign up and say, "Hey, if you get the 1 seed, and the season ends the end of December, you're not going to play till the beginning of February." I don't think any team would sign up for that. So I don't know why we're asking kids to do it. Again, you condense the schedule. If you're getting the buys, you're off for a week, 10 days the most, and then you're playing. Like we saw in that clip of landing like 26, 29 days. Like that's nuts. you could only plan and prep and do so much, and then again, you have the luxury of sending your kids home for Christmas and doing other things where other teams might not, and giving different kind of breaks, and it ruins your routine, and you could tell the kids get out of whack. Some teams bounce back really quick, other teams don't, and they just never find it. They lose the game speed and all that kind of stuff, and it is what it is. But uh, I look at it in a bigger picture as well. That's why I don't want to go past 12 teams. Like you're going to have these results regardless, because you're again, Oregon was the 5. You know, if they don't have that one loss, they're a top 2 or 3 seed. Indiana was the number 1 seed all year. Well, not all year, but went undefeated. They should, if you're looking like an NCAA, basketball type thing, like you get these lopsided results. Like some of these teams are just a lot better than the other teams. That's why I don't like. Again, we talked about it. I thought everybody below Oregon, Ole Miss and Miami are going to have a chance to prove me wrong, but I realistically thought everybody below Oregon didn't have a chance to win a national championship. I don't think putting this playoff out to 16 teams is going to change anything. You're going to get more blowouts. That's all you're going to get. Like, I hate to say it, but like you're going to get at least 1 or 2 more matchups of an Oregon versus a JMU like team. That's usually not going to be a close game. And then you're still going to come back with a 1 playing like an 8 or 9 or a 10 or 11 seed. That's probably not going to be a close game. Like, so I don't want to hear the people crying about blowouts. Like some of these teams are just better than the other teams, and that's going to happen. So, and again, I haven't heard shit from a Notre Dame fan the last 2 weeks. All of a sudden, oh, Miami shouldn't have got in. They shouldn't have got in front of us. And now all of a sudden, I can't find a Notre Dame fan, anywhere. So, sometimes they just get it right, and it looks like they did. Like again, you got Miami, Ole Miss, and 2 Big Ten teams. So I mean, it's
yeah.
Them
getting it right, I think, is my like pretty much major takeaway from this year's college football playoff. Because like regardless of how you feel about JMU and Tulane, if Virginia would have taken care of business, like we said it before, if Virginia takes care of business, they're in and JMU's not in, and you're seeing Virginia versus Oregon anyway. And then Tulane being in, I mean, you have to give at least one of the group of 5 schools a shot there. So I think this was just one of those off years where you had 2 group of 5 schools ultimately making it there. But Miami has clearly showed that they belong there. And even if you don't necessarily think that Bama belonged in that spot after losing the SEC championship game, at least them winning 1 playoff game this year kind of validates that. So I think the committee got it right this year. And I think this year's playoff should show you that 12 is probably the exact perfect amount.
Agreed, because I'll tell you, I got bad news for you. Like you put Virginia in JMU spot, that game's probably not going to look much different. It's not. Oregon at home, the way they played that game. Again, JMU played their hearts out. They didn't send the firepower to stay in that game. But if you've watched Virginia play this year, they don't either. So, would Oregon been up by 30 at the beginning of the 4th quarter? Probably not. But I bet you they're probably up by 3 scores still. Like that the outcome of that game wasn't going to change. And like you said, you're putting a group of 5 in every year, no matter what. So this year it was Tulane. Everybody loved Boise State. We all liked Boise State last year.
Yep.
But they went to Happy Valley, and you saw the difference. Genty couldn't do anything. Like you saw the difference in the talent and the strength of the teams. That's what you're going to have. It's like I don't know if we're ever going to have I mean, again, we have a chance to do it this year with Miami. Ole Miss being a 6 seed, I don't think is crazy. Winning a national championship, especially coming out of the SEC. But I don't know if we're ever going to have an 8, 9, or 10 seed win one of these things. I don't.
What we did last year.
Well, yeah, but
I'm just saying.
It's such a one-off with the way the seeding thing went. But I don't think anybody would say Ohio State was the 8th best team last year going into that playoff.
I agree.
That's all I'm saying. You look at these on paper. Again, even everybody, literally everybody said if Ohio State can get past Oregon, they're probably gonna win the national championship. That was they were one of the betting favorites. They had to get past Oregon. Nobody was putting their mortgage on Miami this year.
But so I agree with you. I'm just saying that I ultimately think, you're going to have years where teams lose games early, and they lose maybe one, maybe two games, and you have other teams that go 11-1 or 12-0, and you get a really good team that falls into that, 8, 9, 10 seed. Like I think if we're looking at it now, Georgia easily, and granted, they're probably a bad example because they were on the 3 line, but Georgia easily could have been a 2-loss team this year. And, that would have probably put them somewhere on the, 7, 8, 9, 10 line. And again, I know they lost to Ole Miss, but Georgia was 100%. We talked about it before the playoffs started. Georgia was 100% one of those teams that could have won a national championship this year. So I really just think it's all about how things fall during the regular season. And I disagree with the point about 7, 8, 9, 10 seeds can't win, or you probably won't see it happening. I think that is kind of been proven already with this, and even seeing Miami kind of having their success they're having this year. But ultimately, though, I think it's really all about styles and how the breakdowns happen. If anything, I think this is just showing that. I looked at that Oregon versus Texas Tech game in Hard Rock, and I walked away thinking that it is a crime against humanity that those second round matchups are not played on a college campus. Like those stadiums would absolutely be rocking. And I get it. You want to have your major bowl games every year, and you don't want the Cotton Bowl or the Rose Bowl to get shut out. But maybe you do a revolving schedule where, like, 1 year it's these 2 bowl games that get it done, and the national championship is always at X spot, whatever the case may be there. But I think we're really being done an injustice by not having those second round matchups on these college football campuses, because especially how some of these games went, like those atmospheres would absolutely be electric.
I think Dan Lanning even said it too, that he felt this game, I mean, obviously he didn't want it to be, but he said he felt this week should have been in Lubbock. He felt last year's Ohio State-Oregon game should have been in Eugene. He's been a kind of an adamant fan that up into the semifinals, games should be on college campuses. So I definitely do not agree with that at all.
You'll lose games. That's the problem. You'll we went. I don't know if anyone remembers, but like one of the things that held this up from the get-go was them negotiating with the Rose Bowl because they want they want it on their day in their time slot. And originally the college football playoff wasn't going to be able to guarantee that having a middle game there all the time. And they were like, all right, well then you're just not using us then. And it got pretty contentious. So I think you start telling the Rose Bowl and Fiesta and all them, hey, we're going to rotate you out every 2 years and you're going to sit for 2 years. I think some of them would pull back. So I
say this though, Gene. I mean, not Gene. Bill. To that point.
Goodbye.
to that point, I say, well, the Rose Bowl will no longer be housing a home team for the college football season right now. So if it is your idea that you're gonna go up against the NCAA and they say, hey, we want to rotate you guys out every other year, I think the Rose Bowl should be one of those ones that's there no matter what. But if they ultimately say, hey, we want to rotate you guys out every other year, take it or leave it. If the Rose Bowl leaves it, what revenue are they bringing in from that stadium?
Yeah, I mean, but I think sits dormant pretty much most of the year anyway.
Exactly. So I'm saying, like, I don't really think they have a leg to stand on right now to really complain.
The only pushback I would give you is there's a huge push, I think, within the system as it is now, that people want the national championship game played there every year.
I'd be okay with that.
So would I. And I think if you handed them that, I think that would be a different story. But listen, I'm not gonna lie, dude. Like, if I'm watching a college football playoff every year, there's no Rose Bowl. That's weird to me. Like, because I feel like we've already no, hold on. The only reason I say that is we've already stretched. Like, listen, the Orange Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Fiesta, and the Rose were always the big four. All right. The Cotton Bowl got thrown in there because Jerry Jones said they could use that stadium. So now the Cotton Bowl the Cotton Bowl was never one of the big four, and neither was the Peach Bowl. Peach Bowl got thrown in because Chick-fil-A got behind them and like, cool, here's all your money. So like those two got to be the first to go. So after that, I think you have to find a way to make the other 4 happy. If you can do that, then I'm completely okay with it. I agree with you. I would rather have the second round games. I think because if you are a top 4 seed, I think one of the thing I think it's like again, you look at Indiana, like they were the number 1 seed. They didn't play a home game. Like that's nuts to me. I think the first 2 rounds, I'm in full agreement. I think should be on home campuses. Especially like if you're in Indiana, you're like, cool, you're gonna make me wait a month, but then you're gonna make me get on a plane and go play somewhere. Like, no, like I want to play at home. Like, I'm in full agreement with that. I just think you have to protect those big 4. And if that means the Cotton Bowl and the Peach Bowl just go back into the natural normal rotation with, hey, you get the 3rd place SEC team versus the 3rd place Big Ten team, and you play that every year, Dallas or whatever, or however you want to do it. I think that's what should happen. I just like again, I just don't think I think that's step 1 because I think that eliminates anybody sitting more than 1 year. Like I just don't think those 2 bowl games should factor into either the Fiesta Orange, Sugar, or Rose Bowl losing a game because that's just dumb.
But here's the thing, but I think the Rose Bowl also plays a bigger part in all 3 of our minds because for years it was the Big Ten champion versus the Pac-12 champion or Pac-10 champion earlier time. So like we're so used to that Rose Bowl, but like SEC fans, they don't care about the Rose Bowl. You know what I mean? Like it's not as big of a game to them. But I definitely see what you're saying as far as it being a staple.
You could say the same thing about the Sugar Bowl though, because
exactly.
The only thing that I would argue against that though is while they may not care about the game as much as we do, I think the one thing that's universal, regardless of what team you're a fan of, the Rose Bowl is, top 2, top 3, depending on a lot of people's minds, it's one best venues in all of college football. And, when you think about the Rose Bowl and you think about the time of day that it gets played and you think about, that 3rd quarter, 4th quarter where you're seeing the sunset and, you just get that beautiful view of Pasadena there. I think that's a staple in the college football landscape. So while I agree that, you're probably right as far as, it doesn't hold the historical significance. And, if you're a fan of SEC teams and things like that, I also think it's one of the staple venues in all of college football there, any way you slice it.
Yeah, well,
I agree.
And UCLA probably won't be playing there for much longer, if ever again. So it's sad to see what's kind of come of that building. Hopefully the Rose Bowl doesn't go anywhere though. But go ahead, Bill. You got something to say.
No, I mean the Rose Bowl's not going anywhere, but apparently it's mayhem to get in and out of there. So I mean,
parking is a nightmare.
They were talking about that a little bit this week, but again, I think there's a large contingent of people. To Cottrell's point, it's a good destination because you're going somewhere warmer. It's gorgeous. The field's perfect. And it's an absolute staple of college football. I'll say this, and I might be like in the minority. I don't want to watch a national championship game in a dome. I don't. If I had a choice between putting the Rose Bowl or, Atlanta in the Mercedes, I'll watch it, outside all day. I think this game should be played outside, and you have enough places where you can play it outside in good weather. So, I don't like championship games being played in domes unless it's like, hey, like the NFL does, where it's like the Super Bowl could possibly be like in Minneapolis. Like, cool. Okay, that's got to be in a dome because I don't want a foot of snow on the ground affecting the football game. But there's a lot of people that think that the Rose Bowl should just be the national championship game every year. I will wonder how much steam that'll continue to get in the next couple of years when they start redoing all these contracts. But it's going to be interesting.
I did just want to bring up one thing here before we move on. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the chat is going crazy about Notre Dame right now.
Yeah.
Bill, you brought all the Notre Dame fans from under their rock, back to the surface, and they are now saying that apparently, they never had a gripe with Miami getting in. The whole time it was about Bama getting in over them. So,
and they're all lying. They're all lying. They're all lying because they have nothing to say about Miami now.
I think it's quite interesting, how the tables have turned there now that Miami is one game away from playing for a national championship. So,
wow, where did I just go?
Honestly, the whole time you guys have been talking, I've just been silent over here, just reading the chat, and I love it.
hop in a Denny's parking lot. That's hilarious.
Okay, now let's keep Oregon out of this. Okay, we won Texas Tech. All right, give us a week to enjoy the win before you start telling us about how we choke. Okay, let's just have some happiness for a little bit. I'll tell you one other person that's happy though, and they have nothing to do with this college football playoff anymore, and that is Mr. Lane Kiffin. Let's just have a brief little conversation. I know Lane comes up the last few weeks. Lane Kiffin keeps coming up, but as long as Ole Miss keeps winning, this man keeps collecting checks. After the first round win, he collected a $250,000 bonus. After they beat Georgia this last week, he collected $500,000. If Ole Miss makes it to the college football championship game, he gets another $250,000. And if they win the whole thing, he gets $1 million in his bank account, all paid out by LSU, of course, not Ole Miss. So Lane Kiffin, he's just winning no matter what he does at this point. Whether he coaches or not, he's still getting paid. Do we think that this is obviously this is part of the LSU agreement, not anything to do with Ole Miss, but if Ole Miss finds a way to win, obviously this is a big what if, finds a way to win a national championship this year, is Lane Kiffin considered a national championship winning coach?
Absolutely not. There's no doubt in my mind that he's not considered a national championship winning coach. How can you be a national championship winning coach when you didn't coach any playoff games? Like that would be completely, illogical there. And I look at it as Ole Miss played there. They lost their only game of the season this year against Georgia, and Lane Kiffin was on the sideline. And who did they beat in the playoffs without Lane Kiffin? Oh yeah, that was Georgia. I think that Lane Kiffin, I know he's getting all this money from not doing anything. He's just sitting on his couch watching these football games, or actually, I think he was at the game against Georgia. But regardless, though,
at some point,
I think, and I may be on my own branch here. I think Lane Kiffin would much rather have Ole Miss lose than collect the checks that he has been. I think Lane Kiffin is that self-centered, egotistical, egomaniac that he would rather it be like, hey, see, you guys needed me. You couldn't win without me. I'd much rather give back my money than to see this program win. And I think, you keep hearing players talk about him like after he's been gone, and they're like, oh, we're not thinking about Lane right now. Or they came out right after it was announced that he was leaving to go to Ole Miss. And, Lane Kiffin has said that the players were fighting for him to be there to coach in the playoffs. And a lot of players were like, well, we were in those meeting rooms, and that's not what happened at all. I 100% think that he's just trying to save face and be like, oh, yeah, I got Ole Miss's back. Like, I'm rooting for these guys to win and all this stuff. When in reality, I think after that relationship ended and they didn't allow him to coach in those playoff games, I truly think he's rooting for their downfall, and he is pissed that they keep finding ways to win football games because Lane is already rich. Of course, it never hurts to have more money or get money to not do anything. But I 100% believe that if he had it his way, if it was $250,000 or Ole Miss losing so that he could be like, I really think we could have won if I was the coach, I 100% thinks he chooses the latter there.
I don't disagree. I feel like I could picture Lane Kiffin sitting in his man cave at home watching them win and throwing shit against the wall and everything. Listen, I said this in the chat as a joke, but like Ole Miss goes and beats Miami again and makes it to the final. Like if I'm LSU, I'm like, do we spend money on the right guy here? Like this guy left and then they just ripped off 3 straight playoff wins with their defensive coordinator. It's getting dicey. I made the joke. If they win the national championship, I would not give him a ring. I don't think there's any recourse. I don't think there's any recourse he would have to make them give him one. And I'm absolutely holding the ring ceremony when LSU comes to town next year to fire that place up even more. And hopefully, you get somebody to, just go absolutely nuts. I can't wait. That's probably the number 1 game on my list for next year for like eagerly awaiting.
I told you I'd give him the replica.
I'm a Lane Kiffin fan.
The real one.
Yeah. I'm a Lane Kiffin fan. But to just this comment, it's actually funny. Lane Kiffin did go to the LSU women's basketball game minding his own business, and it was LSU women's basketball team's first loss of the season with him in attendance. So not a good look or start for LSU.
Get used to that.
Here's what I will say, though. People in the comments were asking if he would get a ring. It is up to the championship winning school to determine who gets the ring. Someone also in the comments said that Jim Harbaugh got a ring. Jim Harbaugh also left Michigan on much better terms than Lane Kiffin.
He coached the whole playoff.
I was going to say Jim Harbaugh also was
exactly.
Jim Harbaugh missed 2 regular season games. He coached 13 of the 15 games.
I was just addressing the comment that like Jim Harbaugh got one because he had a little bit of
totally different situation.
However, Bill, I don't agree with you. Like Lane Kiffin didn't coach in these playoffs. However, he did coach these guys from day one of practice through the entire season, earned them the right for the college football playoff. So you can't say, I don't think LSU is looking at this like, oh, we hired the wrong guy. No, he coached an entire team to become successful even after he left, and he remained successful. So
Alex, I think that's a great point. Like I think what you're saying is spot on, but I also have to think you have to think about where he's going. So if LSU hired Brian Kelly, they didn't make the playoffs once while he was there. So like that's already a problem. But if Lane goes there, let's say they make the playoffs, this was the first time that Ole Miss made the playoffs under Lane Kiffin. Huge success for them. People are saying that this might be the best team in Ole Miss history. At LSU, making the playoffs is not going to be the barometer. It has to be winning a national championship because that's what they hired Lane Kiffin in to do. So I think even if Lane goes there and he makes it to the playoffs in, 3 years in, and they're consistently make the playoffs, if they don't find a way to bring home a national championship, I think LSU is looking at that hire as a failure because that's what the standard is there. There's few schools where the standard is a national championship, year in and year out. And LSU is 100% one of those, even though they haven't been in that territory in a few years. They're one of those schools that they went out, they spent the money. They said, hey, we're going to give you a $25 million roster. We're going to sign you to this $90 million contract. We're going to pay you your playoff money, even though you're not at the school coaching there anymore. I think LSU went all in with Lane Kiffin, and winning playoff games is nice. Making the playoff is nice, but the standard will be to win a national championship.
Yeah, and that's definitely exactly why he went there. It's kind of funny that Lane Kiffin left Ole Miss to have a better opportunity to win a national championship, and Ole Miss might have been that spot the whole time. I like Lane Kiffin. It's just watching it all play out.
And that's what happens when you do things based on money.
There you go. Speaking of money and doing things based on money, Bill, that was the perfect segue. It's transfer portal time. Right? People are transferring, trying to make some more money. Obviously, transfer portal opened yesterday. I just had the number up. We have officially set a record. Last year, 1,800 kids, football players, entered the transfer portal in the first week the transfer portal opened. In the first 2 days, we're up to 2,500 athletes have entered the transfer portal, up 23% from last year's 1 week numbers, and we're only on day 2. The transfer portal, man, it's taking over college football. Obviously, we're seeing how the transfer portal can affect these playoff teams and how certain players can be that missing piece. You look at Indiana with Fernando Mendoza. You look at Oregon with Dante Moore. Obviously, Ole Miss, Trinidad Shameless, and Miami, Carson Beck. All 4 teams with transfer QBs. Who are some of the big names you've seen? And I have a couple names here. Obviously, we got Sam Levitt has been mentioned in the chat, possibly going to Kentucky. Brandon Sorsby, Drew Mestamaker, who's crystal ball to Oklahoma State as of right now. We got DJ Lagway. I mean, who is the biggest names that you guys have an eye on right now in the portal who can make the biggest difference next year that these 4 QBs in the college football playoff have made this year?
For me, I think the 2 that immediately come to mind are, of course, Sam Levitt is one of them. He has the experience. He's played in the playoff before. He was at Arizona State. Like, we know he has talent. But to me, I think the 2 biggest, wild cards in this whole thing are DJ Lagway and Dylan Raiola. I think both of them, we know what arm talent they have, but they've both underperformed the programs that they were at. I think if they go to the right situation, maybe we see them, maybe have a Dante Moore-esque kind of run. Let's not forget, Dante Moore was also a former 5-star kid that kind of flamed out at UCLA with Chip Kelly, who was, widely considered a great offensive mind. It took him going to Oregon, sitting a year behind Dylan Gabriel, and just kind of learning the position, the nuances of what makes quarterbacks successful. And then he went out and had a, Heisman-esque kind of year. So I think those two, Raiola and Lagway, they probably have the most talent of any QB in the portal right now. But ultimately seeing where they land, I think, could potentially be huge if they go to the right person there. I think another one is Deuce Knight. Deuce Knight left Auburn, another 5-star kid, where I think he has a ton of potential. And the one game that he played, he put up 600 yards total offense and looked absolutely amazing while doing so. But for me, like those are the ones that immediately come to mind that I think could potentially have a, season-altering impact on their team.
Yeah, the hall of quarterbacks and the hall of quarterbacks that are big name quarterbacks that are in the portal already is very intriguing. I agree with Cottrell. I think DJ can absolutely turn a program around if he goes to the right place, gets the right coaching, and also has the right mindset and attitude, like a Dante Moore did. We already mentioned Deuce and a couple of the other guys. Levin's the interesting one for me because I feel like he's a little bit more polished than everybody else already. Like Cottrell mentioned, he's already made the college football playoff as a true freshman. I think he's a guy that can go to a team, plug and play really easily, and either keep a team in the top or make a team better very quickly. I think we'll start seeing running backs soon. I know I saw 2 Alabamas, lower down the depth chart guys are already in. It's going to be, I think it'll slow down after probably this weekend. After that, I think the only other chance you have for big name guys are probably guys that are still playing. After that, I feel like you probably know if you're going or not. But 2,500 kids is nuts, man. That's 25 football teams. Like that's insane.
And then, Bill, you were saying yesterday that Sam Levitt entered the portal, but that he had a do not contact tag on his portal.
I
right?
didn't. I
Cottrell,
said where I thought he was going, and I didn't. Yeah, I didn't know about that part of it until yesterday because when he originally entered, I feel like that didn't get reported. So I guess he knows where he's going.
Well, technically didn't enter until yesterday. The portal opened yesterday.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
people didn't know. Like, you don't know until they're in the portal if they're going to have that do not contact tag. But yeah, everything that I saw said Sam Levitt is officially in the portal, and he had that do not contact tag on him. So clearly, his decision is already made. And I kind of felt that way from the comments that Dillingham had towards him, before their bowl game, and the questions about is he going to play or where's that at, and he kind of already said like, hey, we wish him the best moving forward there. And at that point it wasn't even reported that he was in the portal, so I think they had probably had the conversations of where he was going to go. And so I think that's pretty much been a done deal. But one thing I did want to bring up though is that we do have a crystal ball prediction for a quarterback that we talked about earlier this year in the show, who is potentially one of those group of 5 schools that we thought were going to have a shot to make the playoff, and that's Byron Brown. So he hit the portal from USF, and it looks like he's going to be headed down to Auburn to play in the SEC.
Well, Auburn lost both of their starting quarterbacks. With Deuce Knight entered the portal, and then so did who was their starter before him? I can't remember.
Jackson Arnold.
Your boy.
Ashton Daniels also entered the portal. So Auburn's losing their quarterback room. I think one of the big crystal balls that I have noticed that's really kind of grabbed my attention is Josh Hoover from TCU. Big arm, big time. He said big time quarterback. He's crystal balled 100% to Indiana. Josh Hoover replacing Fernando Mendoza. I think that's a fantastic move on Indiana's part. Same with Rocco Becht. Obviously, with the coaching change, he's also slated to go to Penn State. I think those two could play a huge factor in how the Big Ten kind of plays out next year. Obviously, Penn State had some iffy quarterback play this last year, obviously with injury. I think Rocco Becht's been that guy who really just knows how to win, goes out, plays his heart out. He's a great teammate guy. And then Josh Hoover, Indiana, he's a better quarterback in my mind than Fernando Mendoza is. So I'll be curious to see what Curt Cignetti can do with the Josh Hoover, that offense as well. So Indiana's here to stay, people, and that's pretty scary for the rest of college football.
And then I also think too, I see Rich had a comment here. Cam Coleman going to Texas. I think this receiver group that's currently in the portal has a chance to be really special too. You got Cam Coleman, you got Nick Marsh. Like those are two high profile guys who I 100% think can be game changers for a new team there. I know Michigan had a couple kids that were started. I think Samaj Morgan, he hit the portal, Bill.
Yep.
And
Mr.
so
Mr. Drops.
yeah, I don't think he's gonna be a big time addition, but I think on the top end though, like Cam Coleman is 100% one of those guys that can absolutely change the course of a team. Like you look at what KC Concepcion did at Texas A&M. Like I think he can have that kind of impact for a Texas, or he's thinking about going to A&M as well there. So definitely a couple names I wanted to bring up, and I think the only other name that or two other names that I've kind of been monitoring to see where they're going to go. Chaz Coleman from Penn State, true freshman edge. He's taken a few visits. Looks like Tennessee and LSU have the inside track towards him right now. I think he can be special depending on what program he goes to. And then Coy Parrish from Minnesota, one of the best safeties in the country. He's leaving Minnesota, hit the portal. I'm very curious to see where he lands because I think he can have a big time impact. And just like Dylan had for you, Alex, at Oregon, I think Coy can have that kind of impact at, whatever new program he finds himself at.
Bill, is there anybody from Utah that you kind of keeping your eyes on that you might want to come over to Michigan?
I mean, there's been a couple rumors already. I've gone blind looking at stuff with the portal between Utah and Michigan already, and trying to keep up with obviously all like the big national names. I think it's pretty much a done deal for, and I can't think the kid's name, the D lineman. I think he's going to end up Michigan. I think there's probably a safety or two coming. And I think they're going to bring an offensive lineman or two as well. So, I think the one thing that I think a lot of people were excited about with Whittingham is he's not going to build the team much differently than it was built the last 5 or 6 years. So if he's going to take all, the high end kids from Utah and bring them, then so be it. But I think we'll be okay when the portal's all said and done. Cottrell mentioned Samaj Morgan, who was a guy that I liked a lot, had a great freshman year, and then this year just literally couldn't catch the football. I think, he went through a lot of stuff and he's hitting the portal now. Frederick Moore, I think, is one. I don't want to say it's perplexing. I think that's one that I still think he has a high ceiling. He just couldn't get on the field here. I think he has a chance to be really good for somebody and kind of be a steal. But I know they're looking at the North Texas kid. That was I think third in the country in receiving. He's visiting today. And I know Marsh has already been on campus once as well. So I think they're after both of them as well. So it'll be interesting to see where all those guys fall.
Alex, are you concerned with, obviously it hasn't been announced like a lot of players who are leaving Oregon yet. I think because you guys are still playing. Like I know backup quarterback Nova said he was hitting the portal, but are you concerned with anybody, potentially leaving or just, I guess, pieces that could potentially follow to either Cal or Kentucky there? Because I know Ohio State has had a few, like Lincoln Kingholtz, our backup quarterback, said he was going to hit the portal. I kind of expected that. Like I think he has the opportunity to potentially go to South Florida. He can go to, now that Chip Kelly's the OC at Northwestern, I think that's another one that would make sense for them. We lost one of our starting running back from week one, James Peoples, has also decided to hit the portal. Like again, I think Chip or going down with Hartline can make a ton of sense there. Are there players that you think could potentially hit the portal where you kind of see them, they're in a backup role or they were a starter? You see them going to Cal or Kentucky?
Like I said, so earlier someone had asked if Kentucky was going to be getting Sam Leavitt. And with Sam Leavitt, I think he's going to Kentucky with the Will Stein, who recruited him out of high school, or Sam Leavitt's coming to Oregon, where he won a high school state championship, just to address that. As far as players transferring, I can't think of any of the big names that will follow. Austin Novosad was in competition with Dante Moore for that starting quarterback position. How close that competition really was, in reality, no one will know. Obviously, in the press, Dan Lanning made it seem like they were pretty much plug and play between those two. So I'd be interested to see where he ends up, and hopefully he has some success. But I think Austin's going to end up in Kentucky. And I don't think anybody of real merit is going to transfer out. I know Jaleel Florence, he was a former 4-star cornerback. He entered the transfer portal. I expect him to go to Cal, but nobody that's really jumping out at me. I think my biggest a player that we're losing that I'm most upset over is Jay Harris. I'm a huge fan of Jay Harris, D3 Heisman winner 2 years ago. He never really got a chance to start for Oregon or really get a lot of carries. I think he had 107 yards this year, 1 touchdown. I wish all the best for him. But no, I love the transfer portal for what it offers players who aren't getting a chance to start at these higher end programs, not getting a chance to showcase what they can do. So I love the portal for that sake. It's just, it's for me, and I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here. It seems like JMU. JMU lost 10 out of their 11 starters to the portal after a fantastic season. Like, how can smaller schools build consistent success when the portal makes it so easy for their players to just transfer out? It's just that, for me, that's the biggest issue I have with the portal. But to answer your question, Kachel, because I know I got a little sidetracked there. No, I don't think anybody in Oregon of merit is going to be transferring to either of the schools.
The one thing I'll say about that, though, is that it's been happening, time and time again. Like Cignetti, when he left JMU, he took a ton of his players to Indiana with him. And so I think if you're a small team, you would look at, like, JMU is probably your kings to look at as far as who you should be trying to model your roster after. Because again, they lose, 10 out of their 11 they lose 10 starters ultimately to the portal this year. But I guarantee you next year, JMU is at least a 9-win football team, because that's what they do. They got a new coach in as well. They had their coach is leaving to go to the Power 4. They lost Cignetti a few years ago. But every year, JMU is just consistently there. So, I mean, I think that is how you ultimately have to do things. I also look at Tulane on the other side. It feels like they lose somebody every year. They lost Mekhi Hughes a couple years ago, who was, probably the best running back in all of Group of 5 at minimum. And then this upcoming year, they're losing their starting running back this year as well to the portal. And, we see them keep having success there too. So I think it's possible to have that sustained success there, but it's really going to be all about the culture that you build there. And I also think that can kind of be a selling point for some people. I think it was the Nevada coach that said, if you come here and you're successful, you're going to be a starter at Oregon one day, or like something. It was something to that effect. So I do think that could be a selling point for people. It's like, hey, you come here, you do what you got to do. You scratch my back, essentially, I'll scratch your back. We go, we win a conference championship. We get a, playoff appearance. I have no issues with you going to decide to hit the portal and go somewhere bigger, because then I'll just bring in the next wave of kids, do the exact same thing.
There is, 13 JMU players who went to Indiana.
And then the following year, they made the college football playoff. That is a good culture.
I can't argue with you on that. Bill, any final comments on the portal or anything before we kind of jump into recapping the 4 games from the weekend and then preview the semifinals?
No, I mean, it's impossible to keep track of, but it's fun. It's stressful. I think everybody, if your team is done playing, you hope everybody that's going to declare is declared, and you haven't lost anybody major yet. Cottrell, you think there's any validity to the rumors Jeremiah is going to hit the portal?
No.
Not even thinking about it. Nope.
I mean, I just don't. It wouldn't make sense.
It's everywhere. I agree with you. It wouldn't make sense, but
where are you seeing it, Bill? I haven't seen that.
It's
the only reason that there's any rumors even happening is because they play Miami, and he's from Miami. And Miami's, obviously won the football game, but it wouldn't make sense for him to hit the portal, because if anything, like, if he hit the portal, it would make sense to go to wherever Heartline went if it was a big school. But Jeremiah Smith playing at South Florida, like, wouldn't make sense. Like, if Heartline had got a job at like Penn State or at Miami or at Florida, like, then I'd be like, all right, there's a possibility that happens. But to potentially be the greatest receiver to ever play at Ohio State, like he's going to have a chance with just an average year for his standards. Average year next year, he breaks every Ohio State receiving record. So I don't think he is looking to hit the portal based on like what's out there.
All right.
I agree. I would be shocked if he did.
Well, I think that wraps up portal news. Obviously, next week we're going to definitely jump into more as players start to commit, as the crystal ball starts to kind of form, and we start to get a picture of where players are going to be going. We'll obviously break that down for you guys next week. But let's jump into quick recaps of the 4 games from the weekend. Let's kind of go over those, and then we'll jump into the 2 semifinal matches, and then we'll kind of get out of here. Bill, where are we starting?
I think we have to start on Friday night. I think, which is the big shocker. I think it's Thursday night. Sorry. I think we got to start with Ohio State, Miami.
Cottrell, talk to us, my man. Talk to us. What happened?
You want to go first or last there?
Yeah, I'll go first. That's fine.
Go ahead.
I mean, I think the biggest thing that I looked at this game and I thought Ohio State had the advantage everywhere in the football game besides Miami's defensive line going up against our offensive line. And I thought that if they found a way to, neutralize them and get good protection, I didn't think this game would necessarily be close. And I was obviously very wrong about that, but I was right about the impact per se. Carson Beck had just over 100 yards passing in this football game. Miami did have success running the football, but they scored 17 points on offense. And so I think Ohio State's defense as a whole, you look at the numbers and it's like, whoa, Miami's numbers are higher than a lot of teams they faced before. I think this game was 100% won by the defensive line of Miami. And I say that not just because they were getting sacks on Julian Sand, but they were mentally making him uncomfortable. If you go back and actually watch that game, Ohio State called up some plays where they could take shots down the field and hit a, Carnell Tate or a Jeremiah Smith. And Julian Sand really wasn't looking for him because he was more so worried about the pressure that was in front of him. I think that Miami did a great job of being who they are. They sent 4. They weren't really blitzing because their guys were getting home. And then offensively, I said last week, I thought Carson Beck was going to have a, kind of Herculean effort kind of game to hang in there with Ohio State. When yet again, he did his job. He did exactly what he was supposed to do, handed the ball off, didn't have any turnovers. And I think that played a huge part in this football game here as well. On the flip side of it, I also think for Ohio State, this game was frustrating because I'm like, I think we're a better football team than Miami. But, like I said before, styles do make fights. And, I think Miami's defensive line definitely was a huge reason why they ultimately won there. But the reason why I'm not, after a couple of days to kind of sit back and really think about it, the reason I'm not like necessarily pissed about the outcome of this game is that before the year, I didn't have national championship aspirations for this team. I thought this would be a year where we were kind of reloading and things like that. And the way they looked during the regular season, it gave me a bunch of hope that we could repeat. And I thought there was, a ton of talent there. But at the end of the day, I am fully aware that you can't win the national championship every year. And if you can't win the national championship every year, you at least have to beat Michigan. And that's what we did. Bill, I'm sure, feels the exact same way after last season because he was with the team that couldn't win a national championship, but they beat Ohio State. So it makes that feel a little bit better, especially coming off a national championship. So the nice thing is you're going to have a ton of players coming back for this Ohio State team next year. Carnell Tate is leaving, but you got Chris Henry Jr. coming in. So I think they'll be right back in the mix next year. But got to give a ton of credit to Miami as a whole. They played a great brand of team football there. But that defensive line was absolutely incredible, and they deserve, a ton of that credit from that football game.
Quick question for you, Cottrell. Do you put any of this loss on it being Ryan Day's first game as a play caller in 2 years?
I say no because, again, just kind of watching the game back, I saw there were plays that were dialed up. The play right before the pick six, that they called the screenplay, Max Clare was wide open up the seam for a touchdown. Julian Sand didn't see him. He was too concerned with the pressure. when he actually has somewhat of a clean pocket. If he plays on time, that needs to be a play that results in a touchdown. In my opinion, that's a 14-point swing. I also look at it where I saw other shot plays that were called where the scheme was open. Carnell Tate up the seam, like I mentioned earlier. Julian Sand did not see him. So I think Julian Sand that was the first time all year that he was truly uncomfortable. He played Texas earlier in the year, and they had a good defensive line, but Julian Sand was never really rattled in that game because they didn't ask him to do much. I think this was the first time that you saw him where he was truly like, all right, I don't know what I'm supposed to be necessarily looking at here. And, one of the comments said Julian Sand is not athletic enough. He had a couple of opportunities where he could have, ran the ball there as well, but didn't do that. So I think this was a learning experience there for him. But I also think, like, if we call the exact same plays and CJ Stroud's our quarterback, Justin Fields is our quarterback, hell, Will Howard's our quarterback, I think they would have had an opportunity to win that football game there. And I'm not putting all the pressure on Julian because, again, I understand he's young and he's learning, but I think opportunities were there.
Sounds like you just dumped on Julian Sand.
No. Young quarterback has to learn. You only learn by playing the football games, and I truly think that Julian has a high ceiling there. But you can only learn by playing in these sorts of football games. And outside of that Indiana game, where I think that I would put the play calling in the Indiana game as the main reason over what you saw in the Miami game. But Julian's got to learn from the game, and I think he will.
It's weird. It's a novel concept to have like young quarterbacks play and learn from the mistakes and get better, and not judge them off 6 games. It's weird. I'll say this: everything that I said and thought was going to happen in this game happened. Everything was right except for the outcome. I still thought Ohio State would win. To Cottrell's point, you saw it a little bit in the Texas game. You saw it a little bit in the Michigan game. When you can get pressure on Julian Sand, who, again, for all intents and purposes, is a freshman quarterback, he tends to get rid of the ball a little bit quicker than he should, or he doesn't see things that he thinks he sees right away. And again, that is prototypical of a young freshman quarterback. Michigan couldn't sustain it. Ohio State made adjustments on their offensive line, gave them time. The shot plays that Cottrell's talking about, they took 2, pretty much a difference in the game, hit both of them. He made enough throws down the stretch in the Texas game. Miami was the unique, set of circumstances where they were constantly, pressuring him, or at least in his face, at least, making him kind of like double clutch or really think about, is he seeing what he's seeing? And you saw him have a little bit of an off-schedule, off-kilter game. The difference for me, the biggest difference for me was I still thought Ohio State would make enough adjustments and move the ball more effectively, and they didn't. And I would also say this is the first time that I saw Ohio State's defense all year, including our game, except for a couple, drives here and there. But the majority of the Michigan-Ohio State game, they were the more physical unit. Miami pushed Ohio State around a decent bit. Offensively on the game the other night. That surprised me a little bit because that was, I even said in the preview, that was the unit that I thought would still be. I still thought Ohio State would win that battle between their defense and Miami's offense. It wasn't the case. They ran the ball pretty effectively. Carson Beck made a couple big throws when he had to, and it was definitely the upset of the weekend. Didn't see it coming. Again, not that I didn't think Miami was a good team or Miami was dangerous. I thought Miami was going to give Ohio State a really good game. Said that, I thought the spread was way too high. I just thought Ohio State would pull it out, with their experience and the veteran leadership they had. But the U moves on. Surprising for sure, but I think Miami showed how good they are.
Alex, real quick, one thing I did want to just throw in here too is that I know I said I think a more experienced quarterback essentially wins that football game. One thing I do want to make note of, that pick 6 that happened, it was a screenplay. That is 100% not on Julian Sand. The person to blame for that play is Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith missed his block. If Jeremiah Smith makes the block that he is supposed to make, that play is a first down and arguably a touchdown. So just want to make sure that that's clear for me, that I don't put that on Julian Sand. I actually put that on Jeremiah Smith watching the play back there. He whiffed on his block, and that's why that happens.
Hey, a loss is a loss, and Miami's defensive front just played out of their minds. They've been playing how they've been playing all playoffs. 7 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. Julian Sand could not breathe. 2 interceptions. I think we said it last week, Trell. I think it was for this game and the Duck game it was a race to 24, as I believe was what you said. And literally final score 24-14. So we kind of saw how this was going to play out. We weren't, obviously I picked Miami, you guys picked Ohio State, but you did call it. It was a race to 24, and that's exactly what it was.
No, you picked Ohio State. Don't you lie to the people.
Did I? Are you
did.
Sure?
You did, because Bill thought you were going to pick Miami
I
all the
did.
way up until the end, and you said, I got Ohio
I'm going to have to
State
check the
pulling it
tape.
out.
I'm going to have to check the tape. I'm pretty sure
That's exactly how it happened. I was sitting over here. I was like, he's going to do it. He's going to do it. And then you didn't do it.
Nobody believes you. Nobody believes you. Ohio State. Anyway, Bill.
Sound like a Notre Dame fan over there.
Next game, where are we going?
Changing the script a week later.
Where are we going next, Bill?
Let's go to the
noon game. We might as well go to Oregon, Texas Tech.
Nah, let's go to the dud game first.
That was also the dud game. What are you talking about? We can just go in order here. We can go noon, 3.
Game.
Wasn't a dud game.
Dud game.
In Indiana, Alabama was
good.
Indiana, Alabama was a dud game. That game was over at opening kick. Every single flaw that Alabama had showed up with glaring force in that game against Indiana. Indiana did not look rusty. Came out executing very well on offense at Mendoza. They went right down the field a couple times. You knew Alabama was in trouble very, very, very early in this game. Again, couldn't run the ball. Ty Simpson was kind of running for his life like he has been the last half of the season. There wasn't going to be any miracles for the Tide this game. I would say out-executed, out-prepared, out-coached, outmanned, whatever you want to call it. Kirsten and these boys showed up ready to go. Alabama has glaring holes in that team. I know we talked about the portal, and one guy that didn't come up. We've talked about it in the chat, is Ryan Williams. I'm still going to be shocked if he stays there. I just can't understand the fall from grace from being, arguably the best receiver 2 years ago in the country to can't get a target now. I just don't understand it. But I don't know. I think Kellen DeBoer is on the hot seat. I think it's funny with all the way the stuff, with the Michigan job and the rumors and everything played out. It's back-to-back 3 and 4 lost seasons for him. That's not going to go on real long down there. And it's too good of a job. It's been very interesting what kind of offseason he has and what he brings into the portal. But Indiana is just they're a juggernaut right now. I think we'll get into previews. I think Oregon has a chance to beat them. But we've seen that game once already. But they're just good, man. They're good. They're solid everywhere. They don't make mistakes, and they all play with that. They really do. They all kind of mirror their coach. They play with that kind of edge and that kind of chip on their shoulder. They're the 1 seed for a reason. They're really good. I'm looking forward to the Oregon game, though.
But I gotta give I still think he's the worst Heisman winner we've had that I can remember in Fernando Mendoza. We got to give him some credit on this game. Alabama blitzed him a season high 12 times in that game. Mendoza was 8 for 8 for 161 yards against those blitzes. He had 3 touchdown passes with 5 or more pass rushers coming at him. Dude absolutely balled out. Whether that's Fernando Mendoza seeing the field well or Kurt Signetti scheming up the right play at the right time. Either way, Mendoza absolutely showed why he was the Heisman Trophy winner. Like I said, I still don't give him the credit I think he may deserve. But dude played his ass off, and I can't say anything negative about that. And Alabama kind of showed a lot of people that they are not that that top tier program anymore. I don't really know what to say. This game was kind of just like it said, just like people say in the chat. It was a dud. Cottrell, do you have any last comments on this before we kind of move on?
My biggest question mark, I guess, is seeing how that Alabama team looked in that game. Not necessarily that they were outmatched or anything like that, but like the game against Oklahoma, they were down 17-0. They fought back. There was some, a sense of resilience, from that team. And this game against Indiana, again, I understand they were outmatched, but it almost felt like they rolled over and they didn't really care. Like it just felt like there was never a sense of pride in this game. Like even when Indiana was up like 31-3 or 30-3, whatever the score was, like there just never felt like there was a sense of pride from that group at Bama. And so my question to you guys would be, with that being the case there, do you think Bama made the wrong hire in getting Kalen DeBoer? Like, should they have gone with a guy that has experience in the SEC over the hot name essentially at the time in Kalen DeBoer?
I mean, I don't know who else they would have gotten, I guess is the question. Dan Lanning said no.
Sark said no.
Sark said no.
Yeah, I mean, the only person they could have gotten that would have been better at the time is Curt Cignetti, but the problem is that nobody knew Curt Cignetti was this good. Obviously, JMU, he had success, but we didn't know he would have this kind of success this early, this fast at Indiana.
I mean, there's names out there, though, I think. Like, I'm not saying that they should have necessarily hired these people, but I think about people from the SEC. Like, I think about a Jimbo Fisher. Like, do you make that call potentially? Like, does that do anything for Bama for a couple years there until they find a full-time guy?
I guess what you're comparing there, though, is then are you comparing a guy who kind of flamed out at A&M, has been out in the sport for a couple years, or a guy that's at least in the game right now who, what was a hot name was probably, no lower than 3 on their list, and the first 2 guys turned them down. I'm a little prejudiced because I don't like Jimbo Fisher, but
I'm not even saying that Jimbo is the guy. I'm just saying like a guy like that who has coached in big time games, has been in the SEC before.
We got to remember, though, it's coming off of the Nick Saban dynasty. Like, a lot of coaches didn't want to tie their name to the guy to follow that up. A lot of people didn't want to have the pressure of, I got to win a natty at Alabama dang near every year to be considered successful there. So I think it's a kudos to Kalen DeBoer for having the balls to take that job, knowing that his back is already up against the wall.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that part of it either. But
I think he's 100% right.
Fit-wise, though, was that I agree with you. Like, I'm not necessarily blaming DeBoer. I'm just saying the fit between DeBoer and Bama. Like, did we ever think that was going to be a match made in heaven? Are we saying that it's not? Are we saying that it's going to take time? Like, I guess that's my question of where are we at right now with DeBoer and Bama?
I don't think it was ever going to. But to what we've I don't think anybody was going to be a match made in heaven following Saban. Like, I would say this: I don't think Sark or Lanning would still take the job now, but I think the discussions, if they fired DeBoer now, I think the discussions would be different.
It'd be easier to take that job.
Correct. Yeah. Because you can kind of come in and be the hero. I think
he gets one more year. That's right.
He's not gonna get fired. He's gonna get one more year because if we've seen anything this cycle, I don't think the name is out there that would. And I think this plays into it as well. I don't think any ho-hum, like, I don't think Alabama could ever have any inkling of going to get like they couldn't have gone after Heartline. Like they like that fan base wanted somebody that was more, kind of established. And again, yeah, I don't think the list was that long. You have to go back and, you even looked at like what happened this cycle. Like, I don't think there was that many big names that were realistically accessible for that job. Obviously, if they would have got Dan Lanning was their first choice. If he says yes, then they would have hired him. Stark would have been next. But DeBoer was probably third on that list. Did they call Ryan Day? I don't know. But again, like I think Ryan Day has given off the impression he's never leaving there unless he goes to the NFL, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you're not hiring James Franklin. I mean, maybe do they go after Lane Kiffin a year before everybody else does? But with his history with that school, I don't think so. I just don't know. It's hard to go back a year and really remember who was out there. But like they're not hiring Kyle Whittingham. Like I don't know who was really out there that would have been a sexy name that would have made that fan base more happy than they were when they hired Kellen. I guess is what I would say. I think, but again, I mentioned earlier in the show, I think he's on thin ice now. I don't think next year can get really crooked at all or go off the rails, because if it does, then I don't think he makes it through the year.
For me, it wasn't necessarily about like sexy though. It was more so about fit. I get what you're saying. Like I think when you talk about like Penn State, like Matt Campbell seems like a Penn State guy. Like that just seems like a good fit.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
I get it. Yeah. I think they had to give up on certain things, and I understand what you're saying. I think they looked at Kellen as in he was probably a pretty good in-game coach. They felt like he was going to recruit. I would agree with you when I say I look at him. He doesn't scream SEC guy to me. He doesn't. Excuse me. So in that aspect, Cottrell, I agree with you. He does feel more like a Pac-12, Big Ten type guy. He does.
Bama hasn't been able to run the ball in 2 years. Like that's what I'm like. SEC, you got it. Like Bama, you have to have that running back. You have to have the running game there.
And it's not the kids. I mean, Justice Hayes came up here and had 900 yards in 5.5 games before he got hurt. So he had the players there. They are not figuring it out. And that's one of those things, to Cottrell's point. Everybody in the SEC has good linemen. Like you got to be able to run the football in the SEC. I don't care how good your wide receivers are and your quarterback and everything else. You have to have some semblance of a running game, and they do not right now. And again, it's not. They're getting 2, 3, 5-star running backs every year. It's not a talent thing. So, yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's buyer's remorse now. I'm sure. I'm not plugged into Alabama message boards or anything, but I'm sure it's probably not real pleasant down there right now. But
where are we going next?
Like, who was ever going to fill those shoes, I think is the question though. Like, it's not to the same scope, but like we've talked about it before with college basketball, like Villanova is going to forever, for the rest of our lives, search and try to find another Jay Wright, and they're probably not going to do it. So it was a needle in a haystack. That guy's a legend for a reason. They don't grow on trees. I don't know if Alabama fans will ever be happy again, because to Alex's point, they expect to win the national championship every other year. And that's just not feasible, I don't think, in the way the game's constructed anymore. There's too much parity now. But I guess we'll see.
All right, Bill. We got 2 more games to recap, and then 2 big, huge games to preview going on next Friday. Where are we going to next?
We'll go to dud number 2, as Cottrell would like to call it.
Wow. Y'all say Oregon, Texas Tech was a dud. Okay,
I didn't. No. I didn't. I did. I said dud, so I said Indiana, Alabama. Cottrell said, "Oh, you mean Oregon, Texas Tech?" That wasn't me. It wasn't an exciting game. I think it was a dominant. It was for you. It was. I think it was a dominant game, though. And
Agreed.
And you can go first. So do your thing. I'm giving Oregon all their love here.
Look, here's what I'm going to say. The first half, I was not happy with Oregon going into the halftime up 6-0. We had the ball in the red zone. We had 4 or 5 drives where we should have put points up. We should have been up 21-0 minimum at halftime. And I thought going into halftime, Texas Tech would have all the confidence in the world, allowing Oregon to kind of run up and down the field as they did and still be within one touchdown of kind of taking the lead. And Dan Lanning took a lot of chances, took a lot of risks going on fourth and goal, and with a very iffy play call with a rollout to the right. Bill, you and I were texting, and as you said, you're not a huge fan of rollouts. I'm not a huge fan of rollouts in the red zone because it completely takes away half the field
Correct.
for your
I hate
receivers to
them.
get open. And so I think the play call wasn't the greatest in that situation. I love Dan Lanning's willingness to trust his guys. I love that he went for it on that fourth down with the punter throwing the pass for 12 yards, getting the first down. Like, it's plays like that is why I love Dan Lanning as a coach and why I'm happy he's at Oregon, because I know that he trusts his guys, he coaches them the right way. And like I said, this game is 23-0 at the end of the day, but as we know, this game was really, 15-0 before Oregon scored that last second touchdown. Texas Tech's defense, absolutely phenomenal. I came in here knowing our defense was going to do work against Texas Tech's offense. I completely underestimated Texas Tech's defense. So shout out and kudos to them. I think the better team won. And we get to fight. We get to live on and fight one more week at least. So I'm happy.
Just kind of sucks though that if you're Texas Tech, like that is your. I mean, we talk about a dominant team. They won every game that Bear Morton has started by 20 plus points, and then that's the performance that you have offensively. Now we've seen, Bear Morton have struggles in big time games. Like I saw the Utah game earlier this year, and they kind of overcame those turnovers. But against Oregon, it was like they couldn't do anything. The one opportunity they had that absolutely should have resulted in points was in the fourth quarter. They were in the red zone, and Bear Morton decides to throw a pass that's double covered in the corner of the end zone. When if you actually look at the play, the running back ran a Texas route, and he would have been wide open if you put the ball on the right spot there. So I think this is a big case of a veteran quarterback not seeing the field, in that offense with Bear Morton. He was definitely, the one who stopped this train from really moving there, and you would think that that wouldn't have been the case there. You were kind of hoping, no, not as an Oregon fan, but as in general, you're kind of hoping that Bear Morton would just give you something, not essentially give stuff for the other team. If anything, you would hope that he had at least like a Carson Beck approach to things. 4 turnovers for this Texas Tech team. I know they weren't all on Morton. 3 of them were. But that absolutely can't happen when you're going up against a team like Oregon. But on the flip side of that, I do think as well, Dan Lanning, his aggression shows me that he had a ton of respect for that Texas Tech group on the other side. You don't fake punts if you don't think that, you need to score, as much as possible or steal points necessarily. You don't, go for it in the red zone if you don't think points are potentially going to be at a premium, in the football game. So I think if anything, that's Dan Lanning saying, hey, we respect the hell out of this Texas Tech team. And although it was, ultimately a 23-0 win there, I think Dan Lanning and that Oregon group will tell you that Texas Tech, defense is tough. Alex, you just gave him a ton of credit there as well. But I think that's probably, Miami fans aren't going to want to hear this, but I think that was the best defense remaining in the playoffs. And so I think if Oregon can do that and, Dante Moore and company kind of have a pedestrian offensive kind of day there, I think they're in good shape here moving forward to try to figure it out to potentially win a national championship.
Yeah, so I'll say this. I think Texas Tech, to both your points, defense was everything. They were everything as advertised. They were incredible. They were on the field for like 89% of the goddamn game because Morton, the offense, just shit all over themselves the entire game. I'll give a little credit to Oregon's defense as well, who's obviously been a good unit all year. There was plays to be made there, though. I mean, Cottrell mentioned the one in the end zone. And then if you're going to throw that corner out, fine. You can't throw it 4 yards short, though. Like that ball was never getting to that guy. You had the fumble where they kind of had another drive that, they moved the ball a little bit. And that running back is spin move happy. He just coughed up the ball.
Yep.
I thought Moore looked terrible. I think you guys are both being kind of nice and sugarcoating it a little bit. I thought he looked awful. I thought he looked like he was deer in headlights. Like the whole thing was too big for him. Never looked comfortable. Missed, definitely had some opportunities where there was, open looks. He missed a couple of deep shots deeper in the zones, missing wide receivers by 4 or 5 yards. He looked terrible. And I if anybody is going to, I don't know what they have coming in freshman wise, but there is no way in hell I'm not in the portal if I'm Tech trying to get one of these kids to come there. That's a damn good football team. I would say for the season they had, for it to end that way, I think that's probably a really bitter taste in their mouth. Especially if you're on the defensive side. You look at it, you give up 23 points, lose 23-0. And I think everybody that watched the game would agree their defensive unit was the best unit of the 4. That probably hurts. Got to give Oregon credit. Dante Moore, made a couple really, really good kind of pro-esque throws when he had to. They ran the ball enough. And they were smart. They didn't turn the ball over really. Played a smart football game. I agree with Cottrell. I think Dan Laney came in with a more conservative game plan out of respect for Texas Tech's defense, but still aggressive enough to get points on the board and win the game. Oregon looked really good. I thought they played a good game top to bottom, 60 minutes all around. I think they missed. Yeah, T to B. Missed the one field goal. I will tell you this, Alex. I'm not as confident, I guess, in your kicker as I think you are.
Atticus Sappington is a beast, bro. If it's less than 50 yards, it's automatic. He did it at Penn State. He did it at Iowa. He did it at Iowa.
Never gets more than like halfway up the uprights.
That's why I said if it's less than
easy
50,
to block.
he is automatic.
We'll see.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
Well, I mean, he missed one, but we'll
I just
see.
love how you say that it was a conservative play calling game. When he went for fourth down, he went for it on fourth down 8 times. 8 times. I don't see conservative there.
Bro, they weren't running flea flickers on fourth down. It was like 4th and 1, dude.
They were doing pump passes. That's not a very conservative play call. I'm just saying.
It's a fake punt. We gave them credit. You watch that tape back and then go watch one of the other games where they put up like 52 and tell me the same plays were called, because they weren't.
I mean, if I watched the Iowa game film, I bet it'd pretty much be the same exact dang play calls.
I bet you a lot of the routes were different.
Maybe
they just again they weren't going to let Dante Moore sit back there and A, get hit, and B, hold the ball for more than a 3 or 5 step drop. They wanted the ball out, and that's if he was even under center. I think which was probably only a couple times the game. They got the ball out of his head quick and out of respect for that defensive line. Iowa's defensive line was nowhere near that. So I would push back on that. I think, again, I'm not saying conservative in a bad way either. It was conservative in a good way to keep the ball, not have turnovers, and still be able to move the ball and win the football game. And sometimes you have to do that. You can't go out and score 52 all the time. Like if you have him drop back, and hold the ball for 5 seconds, he would have got murdered in that game. That's not how you're going to win that game. Different ways to skin a cat and beat Texas Tech. You got to be more methodical. And again, to Oregon's credit, I think they showed they could do that. So, because I think they're going to have a similar game plan against Indiana. So, very curious for that matchup. But we got one game left, then we get into previews. Ole Miss, Georgia, track meet, great game. Georgia went up, was it 23-12 or something like that? And it looked like it was going to kind of turn that way. And then Ole Miss was just like, no, we're not done. There's apparently a very fiery halftime speech from Ole Miss's coach. Kind of just got down to the grit of it all. And they came out and played a terrific second half of football. Shamlis is that kid's a star. I think Gunnar Stockton played his heart out. He got banged up a lot.
Yeah, he
I thought
did.
that one shot he took was just brutal. I give that kid credit. I think he played a really good game. Again, Chambliss is just he's different. Again, and that just goes to show you. I mean, Cottrell mentioned earlier in the show, kid wasn't even Division One football last year. That's nuts. Um, Ole Miss is kind of starting to take. I think this next matchup again. Not to get into it, but like I think you're starting to get kind of like feeling of like teams of destiny versus kind of like I think the teams people are going to start rooting for with both Miami and Ole Miss. But um, I was impressed with Ole Miss's defense down the stretch. If I'm being honest, they got a couple stops when they really needed to. And then I think it was that like third or fourth call at the end of the game when they threw that kid on the fly route to pretty much ice it. Chambliss just dropped it in there. It was great. Listen to his interview. Kid is humble. He's everything you want. He's everything you want in a quarterback. Saw the meme of him chasing Gunner down to give him, shake his hand and everything, running off the field again. Ole Miss is doing everything right. They're playing together. I think Kirby had a great game at running back, playing with a shoulder that apparently is not in real good shape. He gutted it out. That team is definitely playing for each other. It's fun to watch. I thought Georgia was going to win this game because I thought they played really well down the stretch. But here we are, upset in the SEC. Not that big a deal. Ole Miss moves on.
Obviously, it was a fantastic game. Reversed from the first time they played. Literally the exact same scenario, just reversed. It's kind of funny. And I'm going to make this short and quick. I love the precedent that Ole Miss set in this game. Alabama lost to Oklahoma earlier in the year. Alabama was able to rectify that by beating them in the playoff. Georgia beat Ole Miss earlier in the season. Ole Miss was able to rectify that. Oregon, Indiana up next. We're setting a trend. Cottrell, what are your thoughts on Ole Miss, Georgia, before we start talking about how Oregon's going to be the next national champion?
Oh, well, I mean, I think the first thing here is that I will gladly I gotta have something to take a victory lap on, and I will gladly take it with Trinidad Chambliss. I told you guys back in April that I thought he had a chance to be special, and I thought he was going to be a guy that could potentially be in the Heisman talks. I saw the kid play with my own eyes last year in the Division II national championship game, and he was absolutely incredible. So I always knew that, he had that kind of talent. What I will say, though, and I have a question for you after I end here, Alex. This Ole Miss group, I mean, talked about resilience earlier with Bama not having it. This Ole Miss group, man, it felt like they never gave up. Like, Bill mentioned the 21-12, and I know that's only a 2-possession game there. But to know how the half ended, where it felt like it was bad clock management, where they should have been able to at least have an attempt to put points up on the board, but that didn't happen. Like, you can kind of think sometimes that kind of thing can start to fester, especially with the way Georgia's offense was, starting to move the ball downfield. Georgia also had the defensive touchdown there as well. Like, all the momentum was on Georgia's side, but Ole Miss came out in that second half, and like you guys said, it was a complete reversal of what had happened that first game. Ole Miss was the one that was putting up points down the stretch there, and Ole Miss was the one that went on the run to ultimately to end the game there. So give a ton of credit to that Ole Miss group there. I like what you guys said also about Gunnar Stockton. That kid is 100% belonging in the category of being a gamer. I mean, the hits that he took, it felt like every other play was absolutely incredible that he kept getting up from them, and not just kept getting up, but he was still rolling out, making plays, making throws on the run, still trying to run the ball, taking more hits. So I absolutely love seeing that, and you have to love seeing that if you're a Georgia fan there. My question for you, though, Alex, here real quick is 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, whenever it happened, when they named Pete Golding the head coach, you said that Ole Miss had made a mistake. I know this is still fresh, but after 2 playoff wins, do you still feel that way, or do you see what Ole Miss potential could be with Golding at the helm?
No, I think this is a Lane Kiffin coach team executing everything he put into place, and there's just a new guy calling the plays. That's literally the only difference. I think we won't have a solid idea about his coaching style and if he was a good fit until next season, where he gets the guys from day one through the end of the season. Then we're going to see what a team truly coached by him looks like. I think you can't throw away 6 months of coaching for Lane Kiffin and say that Golding is the reason they're having the success in the playoff. As much as you may like or hate Lane Kiffin, you just can't do that. He hasn't made this big of a difference in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So I think we're not going to have a true idea if it was a good hire until the end of next year.
So you're not giving him any credit. You're not giving him any credit for keeping his team together.
No, I think they're running on emotions, adrenaline, and eventually they're going to run up against a buzzsaw and bring them back down to earth. And it could be this Miami team. So,
bro, your Lane Kiffin loyalty knows no bounds.
It's not about Lane Kiffin loyalty. It's about being realist, being a realist. It's like saying that I get a new job and everything I've ever learned from every previous job just goes out the window, and I only know what my new manager teaches me. You know what I mean? Like not.
But Alex, to the flip side of that, though, to the flip side of that, though, I think your main concern with Oregon was, oh, well, my coordinator's got new jobs, and now they're going 50-50 between, their new job and doing their duties at Oregon. And those coaches are still in the building, and you're concerned about Oregon looking different. Well, Lane Kiffin's no longer even in the building anymore. Like They have a completely different guy calling plays, like going through the motions and things like that. So I think it's really, the same, but just in an inverse effect there, to where if the guy is no longer in the building, like you have to realize that the guys who are in the building, it could be looking completely different.
But the schemes aren't different. The schemes and the plays are still the same. It's just the order they're calling them and the prep is a little different.
To your work comparison though, like you're taking bits and pieces and of everything that you learned before, but then you go to this new job and then you get this new manager, and this new manager puts it all together for you and brings it all out of you and makes you successful. You don't give that guy any credit.
What was the 12-1 season Lane Kiffin gave them? Was that not him bringing it out of them and being successful? Not to mention, Tulane was not a game that we thought they were.
When's the last time Lane Kiffin went?
Hold on.
2-0 in playoffs.
They could have had a 7-year-old coach that team against Tulane, and they would have won. Against Georgia, yes, that was strictly won on emotion, and Trinidad Chambliss made that win happen. I can't say that the defensive coordinator who allowed 34 points to Georgia this last round is the reason that they're having the success.
Well, I can't get behind that. Their defensive coordinator is the head coach. He is no longer that's not his title anymore. So I can't say that.
Right. But the defensive strategy is still going to be what he put in place this year. They're not going to switch up the whole defensive strategy going into the college football playoff.
So if Oregon gives up 30 points, but they win the football game because their offense scores 40-something points, you're not going to come on here and say, oh, well, Dan Lanning's defense gave up 30 points and they won the football game. It's not Dan Lanning's win. No, I don't think that's the case. That's ridiculous.
Well, here's the difference, though, is that you brought up Oregon's offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator having splitting time. The difference is that our future offensive and defensive coordinator are already in the building, and they've been in the building for the last 2 years. So there's some continuity and ability for us to allow them to kind of do their other coaching jobs. But no, like I said, you're back to your main question, though, was do I think this was a good hire? I cannot definitively answer that question until I see a full season start to finish with him at the helm.
Which is fine.
As far as this Ole Miss season, it is running on straight adrenaline and straight trying to prove people wrong. That's what this run is about. This is how underdog stories are created. This is literally probably going to be a movie. If the Ole Miss wins the national championship, this is going to be a movie in 20 years. Guarantee it.
I will say, though, the original question was not, do you think it was a good hire? My original question really was, do you still think it was a mistake to make the hiring?
Right, which is the exact same question.
No, it's not. No. It's not. Because it being a good hire, it could still be, the jury's still out. Was it a mistake to hire him? That was
we won't know until I see a full year. Same exact answer.
Okay.
Because like I said, all of these players were coached the entire year by Lane Kiffin. So you can't say they forgot everything. So we need to see a full season with him at the helm.
I'm just saying they lose to Georgia when he's there. They win without him. Coincidence.
Oh boy.
Quite the coincidence.
All right, let's go. All right, let's go to previews. We gotta go.
Jeez.
I can't. I
Perfect
hate the
segue.
fact.
Perfect
I hate
segue.
I hate the fact that Lane takes up any time on this goddamn show as it is. I guess we're going to the Fiesta Bowl. VR Bowl, Fiesta Bowl. Ole Miss, the Lane Kiffin Orphans versus Miami Hurricanes, and Alex's favorite coach, Mario Cristobal.
Oh,
Dude,
God.
this should have been like your favorite game ever. You had Lane and Mario in the same game.
But Lane's not there.
I know, because he quit because he's a punk.
He's a rich punk, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
I don't care. Punk's a punk. This is what, in Arizona, I'm assuming? It's usually where it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
know
I
this.
believe so.
It's usually in Arizona. I think this is a tough game to pick if I'm being 100% honest. I know which way I'm going, but I think this is going to be a battle of Miami's offense versus Ole Miss's defense. I think if Miami can run the ball, their biggest goal should be to keep Shamlis off the field. They get those long 9, 10, 11 play drives, not give Ole Miss a bunch of extra possessions, let that defense, especially at defensive line, get after him. I think they have a real shot. If they turn the ball over, if that defense for some reason doesn't show up this game, I think Shamlis and Ole Miss and company can run right through them. I think this is a very intriguing game. Again, we talked about the coaching. Mario Cristobal's been around for a while. He's responsible for some wild decisions that didn't go well. But he's a veteran coach. I think you'd still probably have to give the edge to him in this game. How do you guys see it? What do you think? Where do you think the advantages are? Who do you think wins? Be curious to see where both. I know who Alex is picking, but be very curious to see how Cottrell sees this.
Well, I mean, I think ultimately, just kind of looking at it, like the matchup that you're looking for is, for me at least, Miami's defensive line versus Ole Miss's offensive line. I will say this game will look different than what the Ohio State game did because Trinidad Chambliss is not afraid to utilize his legs there. They also have a more dynamic running back than what Ohio State does in Kewan Lasig. So I think for me, it's going to be how uncomfortable can Miami's defense make Ole Miss's offense. And ultimately, I think Trinidad Chambliss is an absolute gamer. I think this isn't going to be another one of those low-scoring football games here. I think Ole Miss will have the ability to put up points in this football game. If that's the case, Carson Beck's better be ready to play. Fletcher better be ready to put points up on the board there as well. So I think that as long as Trinidad Chambliss does not turn the football over in this football game, I think Ole Miss is going to be in a pristine spot to potentially go out there and win it. So I like Ole Miss to win this one. I'm going to go 27-21. I think this is going to be a very exciting football game. And I think, Trinidad Chambliss keeps that story rolling. And I will want to say, I do want to address one comment here. This says, they sure as hell needed his coaching staff and players, but sure, bro, Lane's a punk. So you're right that they absolutely. I mean, they need a coaching staff to go out there and be with them. They need those players to go out there and be on the field. The main point, though, is that they don't need Lane. It's an addition by subtraction. So you're right. They do need all those things there, but they don't need Lane. And that's been the main point. And they keep winning football games without Lane being in the building. So they don't need him.
Boom.
Well, let's just say they didn't win at all before Lane was in the building. Now they're having success continuing on with what he has been able to coach into that team.
No one is arguing that Lane didn't change things at Ole Miss. Like that, I would never make that argument.
I'm just saying, I like where he's coming from. I like it a lot.
And I agree with him. They just don't need Lane.
What's Lane's record in the playoff?
Technically 2-0, I guess.
No, he's not the head coach there. No, he's a coach.
He's getting paid like he is. So as far as
I
I'm concerned,
don't care what he's getting paid. What
Anyway,
he has to coach a playoff
Miami,
game.
Since Cottrell had to go backwards, we're going to go back on track since we're literally at 9 o'clock right now, or noon, or 11 o'clock East Coast time. Ole Miss, Miami. Miami hasn't allowed more than 19 or 20 points to a team in 6 straight weeks. And I think that trend continues this week. I think that the pressure they've been able to put on the last 2 teams they've played, obviously with Ohio State as well as Texas A&M, and not to mention Carson Beck is by far the most experienced playoff postseason caliber quarterback in remaining in. Yeah, sorry, I can't talk today, in the playoff. So I think mixed with Carson Beck's decision making, he's been making great decisions the last 2 games, not turning the ball over, not making risky throws, not allowing the opponent to get into good field position, as well as Miami's defense and their tenacity and ability to not allow 20 points or more in, like I said, 6 straight games. That ball is going to continue to roll this week. I think Miami wins. I think it's going to be a 24-10 game. I think Ole Miss finally comes down to reality this week. I like Ole Miss. I think that they had a fantastic season, but I think Mario Cristobal, even though I hate him, and Miami are going to make a trip to the college football national championship after this week.
Miami is -3, believe it or not. I don't think they cover. I do think they win. I think Miami's game plan is going to go after Shamlis, but keep him in the pocket as much as they can. I do agree with Cottrell. I think he will get out at certain times and make plays with his legs. He's too dynamic not to. You're not going to keep a kid like that contained every single time. The biggest difference is for me is what Alex just mentioned. They're going to face Carson Beck, who is playing like a 5th-year senior, whatever you want to call him. I don't think he's going to. I think Miami's offensive line is going to protect him. They're not going to get the free shots on Carson Beck that they did on Gunnar Stockton. I think Miami's going to be able to run the ball. I think they're going to be able to control the clock more. I think this is a lower scoring game that people might want to think it is, but I ultimately think Miami offense, defense combined, I think they're going to limit Shamlis's and that offense's chances to really do damage. I like Miami to win 21-20 in a nail biter. I think it's a very good football game, though.
Perfect.
Last but not least,
The
Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Number 1 Indiana versus number 5 Oregon Ducks. Sorry. It's a rematch from week, was it 7, 8, whatever, 6? It's close.
Or week 7, but their 6th game, yeah.
Okay, so week 7, Indiana went into Austin and smacked Daffy Duck around a little bit. Came out with a win, but it was a very good football game. It was a very good football game. I think the most surprising part of that game for me was second half of the 3rd quarter, 4th quarter, Indiana was the more physical team, and it showed. They kind of bullied Oregon around a little bit. Ran the ball, got a bunch of big first downs. I'm going to pick last. Actually, I'll let Alex pick last on this, but heads tell me one thing, hearts tell me the other on this. So
go with the heart. Always go with the heart.
You don't know which is which, Lane.
I don't.
Cottrell, how do you see it?
I mean, I think this is a game where, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I think that first matchup with Indiana and Oregon, you saw Dante Moore I'd argue that was probably his worst game of the year. He had the 2 interceptions. He didn't look confident throwing the football. Oregon struggled to run the football with sustained success in that matchup. And I do think Dan Lanning is going to put an emphasis on trying to change that. So I do think you may see more of them trying to scheme up plays, whether it be more screens or just plays to get Dante Moore in rhythm so that he can have that confidence against this Indiana team. I do think this time around defensively, though, you will see Oregon have more of a concerted effort to stop Indiana rushing the ball. Bill, you brought up a good point there about how Oregon, gave up the chunk plays in the run game in that first matchup. I do think you will see less of that, but at the end of the day here, I think Indiana is just going to be too much for this Oregon group. I think this is a close game as well, but I like Indiana to ultimately pull it out. I do think it's going to be a turnover late from Dante Moore that cost the Ducks a chance to advance here. So I'll take Indiana. I'm going 28-24 in another really close semifinal game.
All right, I'm ready to pick. You want me to go or do you want to go?
No, I want you to go.
Oh, you want
I
me
want
to
you
go?
to hear. I want to hear you say Oregon. I want to hear you say it, Bill. Don't let me down.
All right, so the biggest difference for me in this game, Cottrell, I think hit on some of it for me. I think the biggest key is if Indiana can run the ball again, and if they can, I think it spells trouble for Oregon. Indiana's play action game is top notch. I also think, to Cottrell's other point, this was Dante Moore's. I would say if you watch the game, I don't think statistically it's his worst game, but he made mistakes in this game. I think for the caliber of player he was, if you watch this is the most rattled and unsettled he looked all year. I think Dan Lanning has to come in with a different game plan. I think Oregon has to have a more sustained presence to run the ball in this game, because if they don't, and they get kind of one-dimensional, I think that play is right in Indiana's hands. I think this is an all-time classic game. I really do. I think it's going to be a great rematch. I hate that it's in Atlanta, like so far away from both of these campuses. Like, I hate that. I hate everything about that. It's just not to get back in, but this goes back into
They
what we were
should
talking about
switch game
earlier.
locations. They should switch game locations. Arizona and Atlanta would be much better if
I don't
switched.
disagree. But the wonderful wisdom of the people that run this, just get everything wrong all the time. But
Say it, Bill. Say it.
I'm not.
Bill.
I think Indiana's the better football
Wow.
team.
Joke.
And I don't think it's by a wide margin. Again, I think this is kind of an instant classic game. I'm going to go 31-27 Indiana. I just think they're the team not to be denied this year. I just think they're too good all around. They already have the experience of beating Oregon once. I just don't think I don't think the moment's going to be too big for them. I think the Hoosiers pull out a close one.
All right, so I'm going to make this short and quick since we're a little bit over on time. The first time around, Indiana sacked Dante Moore 5 times, five times or 7 times. After we just faced Texas Tech's defense, which is probably the best defense we faced all year, I like what Oregon's game plan was against Texas Tech, and I have a feeling they're going to be taking that exact same game plan or a very similar one into this week against Indiana. Short passes, a lot of runs, and really risk-taking. The first time around, Dan Lanning went forward on 4th down 4 times and was 3 for 4 on 4th downs. I don't expect that trend or those play calling styles to switch up or stop going forward. Fernando Mendoza, he looked fantastic this last week against why am I blanking? Against Alabama. But there's a trend this college football season, and that's the second time does not favor the first time winners. Alabama beat Oklahoma. Ole Miss was able to beat Georgia. And that trend's going to continue this week when Oregon takes care of Indiana. I think this is going to be a close game. I think this is going to be lower scoring. I think Dante Moore is going to be put up against the wall and be forced to make throws that proves that he's NFL ready. And I think that he's going to step up and do it. Kenyon Sadiq, he's going to be the go-to receiver. DeCorian Moore, now that he's got 2 games under his belt, I think he's going to be a focal point. Malik Benson is rocking at an all-time high right now. Oregon's offense is clicking, even with, as you said, as low of scoring game as that Texas Tech game was. You could see where the game plan was going. You could see kind of the scheme. You could see, if this one block got made, or if Texas Tech wasn't so dominant on that front 7, this play could have worked. And Indiana's front 7 is not Texas Tech's front 7. I'm excited for this game. I'm excited for Jaden Lamar to come back. And we're gonna have a four-headed horse at running back. Oregon's going to win this game. I think it's going to be a 24-21 game, and I think Oregon wins it with Sappington hitting a game-winning field goal as time expires. It's weird, man. I didn't feel nervous against Texas Tech, and I don't feel nervous this week. And last year when we lost to Ohio State, I had that gut feeling that Ohio State might have our number. I feel complete confidence going into this game that Oregon's going to take care of business. 24-21, Oregon, Miami national championship. Oregon's going to get a chance to take revenge against Mario Cristobal, and it's going to be the perfect season. And we're going to be able to hang an Oregon championship banner up this year.
It's funny you say that because I don't recall you ever divulging until right now that you felt nervous about that Ohio State and Oregon game. So that's quite interesting.
I knew that wasn't going to slip through the radar.
It's weird. The first time we played Ohio State in the regular season, I was not nervous, like at all. I was like, we're going to win. But when we played you the second time, I had a little bit of, not butterflies, closer to like an upset stomach before the game.
I'm just saying this is about to get whipped. This is the first time this is information is coming out, and we're a year later here. So
I know, and I didn't have the feeling against Tech, even up 6-0 at halftime with their defense stifling our offense. I didn't have any kind of weird gut feelings, and I don't going into this game. I'm very confident Oregon's going to take care of it. Indiana is a 4-point favorite right now. Oregon definitely covers. Oregon definitely wins.
Out of curiosity, though, did you have that feeling with the first Indiana matchup?
Yes. I did.
So I'm going to ask you this on air because I asked you in the chat, and I don't know if you answered or not. I don't remember.
I probably didn't.
Would you rather lose this game or get to the championship game and lose the Cristobal?
Oh, I would rather lose this game.
Oh, man, you really hate
I would
that,
rather.
man. Good Lord.
I would rather lose the semifinal than lose to Mario Cristobal.
Okay.
Because at least Kurt Signetti I respect. You know what I mean? Like Mario Cristobal, zero respect. And also every national championship game we've been in, we've lost. I don't want to lose another one. The next one we make, we're winning.
Well, you can't win one till you make it there.
Yeah, but you just asked me the scenario was lose this game or lose to Miami. I don't want to lose another national championship. I couldn't handle that heartbreak again.
Mario Cristobal would just live rent-free in your head for the rest of your life.
Mario Luigi Cristobal. All right, where's Justin Louder today? Where's my boy Justin?
Where is Justin Louder today?
I don't know. I'll have to tag him. But that's preview. So I got Miami, Oregon, the national championship. You guys will have Indiana and Miami. Yes.
No, correct. I got Indiana, Ole Miss.
That's right. You got the Indiana, Ole Miss.
The two teams of destiny, baby.
I got Indiana, Miami.
All right. Well, let's skip that subject and let's take a look at the quick mountain. And the reason I'm so mad at Mario Cristobal is because he was the coach at Oregon, ditched us in a really bad situation to go take over the coaching job at Miami. He was like the third coach in a row to kind of ditch. Well, second coach in a row because Willie Taggart left for Florida State, and that was a failure. And so I just wish failure upon Mario Cristobal because I really liked him when he was at Oregon. His presence, his play calling, his recruiting, I really liked him here. And when he left, it just didn't put us in a good position. So that's why I have a little bit of a hate towards him.
Don't forget about Chip leaving you high and dry.
Deep emotional scars.
Chip did a lot. Chip left for the NFL. That's different.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, we at least made green boots.
Talk about disaster. Green boots. That green boots is higher. Green boots is where they are now. It's like you're almost there. Like you're gonna make it or you're gonna die.
Nope,
and
we made
it. Two of these. No, you're dead. Two of these teams are gonna die.
Right next to them.
That's poor editing.
That's my bad.
Last four remain. We are officially at green boots level though. About 1,000 feet to go. Two teams are going to climb it. Two teams are going to fall off. We'll see what happens. Been a hell of a year so far though. I expect the semifinals to be nothing short of the same. I think both games are going to be really good football games. Physical. I think they're both going to be lower scoring than people think. But I think they both have the ability to be really, really good football games. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
I got nothing, man. Nothing at all.
I know it's hard to. There's nothing to say like when both our teams are out. It sucks. Alex, you're the only survivor. Only good thing is this will be the third year in a row we are guaranteed to place a Big Ten team into the championship.
Look,
actually, really quick.
Hold on, Bill.
Go ahead.
To the chat. I can be mad at whoever I want for whatever reason I want to be. If I want to be petty, I'm going to be petty. But no, so Mario Cristobal was
Wait,
a
is that his
fantastic
alma
thing this year.
mater? Wait,
Yeah,
I didn't know
he
that.
went to Miami. Yeah, he went to Miami.
Oh,
Miami was.
you don't
Oh,
have a
come
gripe.
on, bro.
What?
Why do you think I never mentioned it before? Because I knew y'all were going to jump off my side. But so if you ask any Oregon fan, the hate for Mario Cristobal is real.
James, thanks
alma
for bringing
mater
that to our attention. We're going to have to address this next week
I'm
now.
not mad at Mario. Hey, don't put that on me, Brian. I'm not mad at Mario. I'm with him. He went to his alma mater. I'm all good with that.
I didn't know that.
Oh, you guys didn't know that, really? Oh,
No,
I thought you guys knew. I thought you were on my side about the whole situation.
I might have to root for him.
Yeah, I already got him in the championship game.
Cottrell's changing his pick now.
You're good. Real quick though, did anybody catch Ryan Clark annihilating Cam Newton in the? Oh my God!
Yeah.
Good Lord, thank you. It was glorious. If you haven't, Google that at home. Check it out. Ryan Clark again just pretty much put it out there. The reason Big Ten's winning championships is because they could pay their players like the SEC used to. So it was very funny. Feinbaum's an SEC homer, and Cam Newton, I don't think knows what planet he's on half the time anymore. But it was a very interesting, funny 3-minute clip. So Google that, have fun with it, gentlemen. We're down to the Final Four. The season feels just like it's flown by. I hate it. I hate that we're almost done. Yep. But we still got a couple shows left to rock. So
we do.
Any final thoughts? Anything, gentlemen?
For the record, I like Cam Newton. So I don't know if that's a surprise to anybody.
No,
my life for Lane Kiffin.
No, not at all, actually.
But no, my last closing thought is, hey, if you guys are in the chat, please like, follow, share. Our network, Wire to Wire Sports Network, has shows 7 days a week. We are on every Saturday, 7 a.m. West Coast time, 10 a.m. East. Wait, 7 a.m. West Coast time, 10 a.m. East Coast time.
Yep.
Please follow, like, share. We appreciate you. We'll be back next week with the recaps of the semifinals, and then we'll be previewing the national championship, and I'm excited for that.
And Brian, for what it's worth, I'm not mad at you for beating Ohio State. I mean, you guys are a better football team. I can respect that. I hope you guys, well, for your sake at least, I hope you guys go win a national championship. But I have the luxury at least of hanging my hat on the fact that we beat Miami in the national championship 23 years ago, and it was not pass interference. So that's what I feel good about.
That was Miami's first win, I think, ever against Ohio State. But Cottrell doesn't believe in pass interference, so don't worry about that comment. It's for another day, for another show. Anyway, gentlemen, thank you as always for making me look good, making the show what it is. Everybody that listened, we had huge numbers today. Guys, I hope you all come back next week. Show will be just as good. Thank you for all the comments, interactions, likes, shares, all that stuff. We love you guys. Makes us able to do what we do. So thank you guys so much. We'll be back next Saturday for the championship game preview. We're out of here, boys.
Laters.